All right, zoning board, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are opened. Go for it.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome everybody to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for December 9th, 2025. We have one canceled public hearing this evening. Rosemary Caputo at 165 South Fairview Avenue in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-28-6-3. That's been canceled, and then we might have a second one that's canceled based on notice, right, or no notice. And that is Jeffrey and Kim Whelan at 170 Marine Boulevard, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-176-4-12. Is it my understanding that that has not been noticed or posted?
I don't have any affidavits or anything. I don't know if anybody's here.
Is there anybody here representing Jeffrey and Kim Whelan? No.
Yeah, this is this.
You have no records. You have no records of posting or mailings. or anything?
No. I don't even think they picked up their, according to Samantha, I don't think they picked it up. So, and this is the second time at least that this has happened.
All right, we're gonna move on. So the first public hearing this evening is the applicant is Goldman Trust, 51 East Lake Drive in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-20-2-16. The size and location is 33,287 square feet of 51 East Lake Drive in Montauk. The description is application is to excavate approximately 2,000 square feet of bamboo and construct a 400 square foot carport, 120 square foot of shed, enlarged driveway, 309 square foot of deck addition, and the construction of a cabana, shed, driveway, gate, and a reconstruction of a staircase to the beach on a parcel of land containing coastal bluffs, freshwater, and tidal wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420, variances from 255-430 of the Town of East Hampton Town Code, and any other relief necessary. The following wetland setbacks are required. 100-foot setback is required. An 80-foot variance to construct the carport 20 feet from wetlands, an 83-foot variance to construct a shed 17 from wetlands, a 68.7-foot variance to construct the deck 30.3 feet from wetlands, and a 26.6-foot variance is required to construct the deck 23.4 feet from the bluff crest, where a 50-foot setback is required. The zoning district is a residence zone, AE flood zone, and elevation 11. The secret class is unlisted. Are we going to deal with the list, the EAF part 1 tonight?
If you guys want to do, you can do that now, or and then I would probably do it now.
Okay, at some point, we're going to have to determine positive negative. Board members, have you reviewed that? And are you ready to make a decision on the
I'm ready.
Part 2 and 3. And
No, is it part 1?
part 1 is the one the applicant submitted.
Just a part 1?
No, it's the whole thing.
We have 2
Yeah,
and
it's the
3
whole
as
thing.
well.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right, so it's the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah, why, is it doing it now?
Well, at some
we
point, we're
can.
going to do it. I think we can do it now. Are we ready to do?
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Can somebody make a motion? I would say
I make a
recommend a
motion.
Want me to
negative.
make a motion?
Well, I'm just gonna make it.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Make a motion for Goldman Trust at 51 East Lake Drive, Montauk, tax map 300-020-02-16 to approve the EAF and make a negative declaration toward secret.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Concur.
Concur. Thank you.
So,
All right.
thank you.
Whose application is this?
Do you want to? Do you want me? And I got the postings for this.
Oh, sorry, posting. Yeah, we can sidetrack on that.
Okay.
You actually got
Thank
these
you.
ones.
Okay, this is proper posting in front of the property. It has a long driveway down to the house. Next, you should be a close-up of the posting. There it is. Okay, next. I'm walking down the driveway toward the house, and there's this cleared area you come to, and it's the first area that's noted on the survey to be revegetated. And then I'm going to continue down the driveway. Next. This is a shot of the other side of the driveway where there's still some silt fencing and stuff put up from the previous applications that have gone on this property. Next. This is an area that was cleared and I believe is on the proposed revegetation for this. Next. Now there's the front of the house, and it's an area where they're proposing a carport and change in the driveway, the parking, and a shed that is proposed to be put in. Next. And this is more in the direction of, in the distance, there's a utility pole that you can see back there, and that's the indication of the property line, around the property line of the property to the north, and this one, and as you go into that, and then look toward the north and the west, you will see where the bamboo starts. That's proposed to be removed. Next. Okay, that's, well, I've walked toward that and closer to the property line. Again, that's the utility pole you can see there. Now I'm going to turn to the west a little bit, where you can see the bamboo is prevalent. Next. Here's some of the bamboo. And next, we'll see more of that. Down back at the front of the house, and again, just shooting over in the direction of the bamboo that's proposed to be removed. Next. This is an area of the front of the house, and when we're walking toward the western portion of the house. Next. And again, at the western portion of the house and turning, again, there's more of the prevalent bamboo that's on the project. Next. And it's a shot in the direction you see continuing bamboo and Lake Montauk, the west side, eastern side of Lake Montauk. Next. This is the staircase that's in disrepair, and this is proposed to be replaced in kind. Next. And it's another area just shooting down along toward the south end of the property. Next. And it's a shot of the house itself from I'm standing now by the fence that's on the previous picture. And see some of the work that had been done already about windows and doors. See that's on there. There was a permit for that. And this project has been ongoing for a while. Next. Just another shot of the fence that was in kind of disrepair near the lakeside. Next. And now it's a shot. You can see the hot tub that's supposed to be replaced in the corner there, the reddish cover, and looking down the driveway from the western side of the property down the driveway. Next. And now we're back at the parking area where the carport and parking area and a shed is proposed to be put in. And I think that's it. That's it. Oh, one more. Okay, again, another shot up the driveway of the silt fencing that's in place on the south side.
Thank you. We have the agent. Oh, David.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. David Kirst from Matthews, Kirst, Cooley, and Choron, 241 Panago Road, East Hampton. Here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Jonathan Goldman, who's here with me, as well as Shannon McCaffrey from Due East Planning and Dr. William Bowman of Land Use Ecological Services. So let me just pass out the presentation I have prepared. This way you have it in writing as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
right, before I get started, I'd like to point out one significant change that has been made to by the applicant. The 309 square foot deck addition on the Lake Montauk side of the house has been eliminated. That eliminates the needs for a 26.6 foot bluff crest setback variance, as well as the 68.7 foot wetland setback variance. So, in consultation with the client, after reviewing the analysis memorandum, that has been eliminated from the application, significantly reducing the relief that's being requested. Yesterday, Due East also submitted a drawing that compares the layouts of the existing driveway with the proposed driveway and the driveway that was approved in 2016. I believe, do you have that available? This way there's no confusion on what was and wasn't approved. It's a nice visual, makes it a little easier. Also, a drainage plan was submitted yesterday by Due East, which provides dry wells that will capture the runoff from the shed, the carport, and the existing driveway. So it eliminates any runoff concerns for these proposed structures and the proposed reconfiguration of the driveway. The property is bounded by Lake Montauk to the west, East Lake Drive to the east. Eastern portion, as you saw, contains significant wetlands, freshwater wetlands that run along the northern property line. In addition, a small wetland had developed over the leaching pools from when that was upgraded in 2016. First, we'll address the bamboo. So we recently reevaluated the square footage, and it's closer to 3,000 square feet than 2,000 square feet of the stand of bamboo. This is going to be removed and revegetated in that area along the property line. To be clear, this bamboo removal is only on our property. I know there was mention in the TAM that the neighboring parcel was also looking, but this is only for our property. Access for the bamboo will be taken along the south and west sides of the house in the area of the existing lawn on the Lake Montauk side, so there wouldn't be any disturbance for the equipment to get around there to remove that bamboo. The existing bamboo does not support native habitat and does not provide any environmental benefit. With me tonight is Dr. William Bowman of Land Use, who can address the benefits from the bamboo removal and answer any questions that you may have in that regard. A protocol was submitted by Due East that I believe in November, that Dr. William Bowman had prepared. So if you don't mind, I'd like to turn it over to him for the bamboo removal, and then I'll rejoin.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. William Bowman, Principal, Land Use Ecological Services.
Can I swear you in?
Sure.
You swear terms, tell the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth, brother?
Yes, sir. Land Use Ecological Services, 570 Expressway Drive South, Medford, New York. As David indicated, the application will involve managing about 3,000 square feet of bamboo along the northern property line. This bamboo management will provide ecological benefits by establishing native vegetation that will provide better wildlife habitat and food resources, and converting that rather out of place bamboo stand to a habitat more typical of the dense shrublands found in Montauk. Bamboo management can be a chore, but the upside of switching that 3,000 square feet to native vegetation is well worth it. Bamboo grows remarkably fast, forms those dense stands and a really dense root network that outcompetes and excludes native vegetation. The successful management of bamboo at this site will require removal of that extensive rhizome mass. and then follow-up maintenance for several years to control any new bamboo shoots. The first step in that bamboo management would be cutting all the shoots to ground level with a motorized pruning saw or hand tools. The rhizome network would then need to be excavated out to a depth of about 24 inches and replaced with clean sandy soils. To be consistent with the surrounding wetlands and overall project site, the restoration area will be graded so that the post-project elevations don't exceed the existing, and that the site provides a gradual slope from east to west to allow drainage, towards Lake Montauk. As David noted, the existing bamboo stand does cross the property boundaries and is present both on the property to the north and the subject property. Accordingly, but that the bamboo is not being controlled on the property to the north. Accordingly, a root barrier about 150 feet in length will need to be installed on or close to that northern property boundary to minimize potential for the bamboo rhizomes from the neighboring property running onto this restored site. That root barrier would consist of a high-density plastic sheeting installed, a minimum 22 inches into the ground, and then sticking up out of the ground by a couple inches. That first phase of bamboo management, the cutting, excavation, fill replacement, and root barrier installation would need to happen in the dormant season between November and the end of March. Bamboo has a pretty short period where it's actively growing when it produces new shoots. During that period of new shoot growth in April and early May, the removal area would need to be inspected, and any new shoots cut or better yet, carefully dug out with a shovel to get both the new shoot and any connecting bit of rhizome. Then, subsequent to that maintenance through that first spring, shoot growth period, native plantings would be installed in that 3,000 square feet. A plant schedule was originally submitted with this application, but we'd expect it to be changed. We would want the native plants to be installed to emphasize, native shrubs. As I said, the bamboo area would then be replanted in mid-May to early June. Of course, all that the sediments and the rhizomes that are removed would have to be taken off site. As David mentioned, they'd be loaded around the front of the house, brought to the existing driveway, dumped directly into a roll-off container, and then transported to a licensed disposal facility. There would be no temporary stockpiling of the material on any soil surfaces, and certainly no reuse of the materials on site or off site. Due to the excavation, the work area, the restoration area would be surrounded by a heavy-duty silt fence. That's a silt fence with the kind of that heavy wire mesh backing to prevent any erosion and transport of sediments towards Lake Montauk. Due to the aggressive nature and persistence of bamboo, long-term maintenance of the site would be expected for several years. In the protocol, we anticipated 5 that would be necessary to ensure successful eradication and establishment of the native vegetation. So that maintenance would involve maintaining the site or maintaining the restoration area, twice a week in that spring growing period to look for new shoots and remove them if they're seen. Also looking at inspecting and maintaining the root barrier. The rhizomes from the neighboring site to the north could try to grow over top of the root barrier, and so you'd have to cut them off at that point. But as I mentioned, With that successful maintenance, 3,000 square feet of additional native vegetation could be established. That vegetation is adjacent to the wetlands, adjacent to the bluff, and would provide a significant habitat improvement. So with that, if the board has any specific questions about the removal methodology.
I don't have any
I don't
questions.
have any questions
Thank
about
you.
bamboo. I have any questions.
Thank you. As part of this project, our client is also proposing a septic system upgrade. The existing septic tank would be removed and replaced with an IA system, an IA tank. The pump station, which is my understanding is failing or failed, will also be replaced. The leaching pools will not be replaced. They are existing. We don't need to disturb them or remove them in order to install the tank or the pump system. So that little wetland that has formed over that will not need to be disturbed. Those tanks are, those leaching pools will not be removed. Moving next to the cabana on the north side of the house, where there's currently a shower, bathroom, and storage area. That structure will be rebuilt in kind, in place. The exterior dimensions will not change. The interior layout will be modified slightly so that there'll be a little more storage. And the shower will be moved to the outside eastern wall of the structure. So it'll be an open air shower on the eastern side of that structure instead of being enclosed inside of it. So there'll be no footprint change to that, no additional square footage or floor area, decking or anything like that. It's in place reconstruction.
David, is that the structure that was on the side of the house, on the north side in the photos?
If you're looking at the house from the road, it's on the right-hand side. I believe you walked under the overhang.
It's that.
That structure there, yeah, it's on.
Is that the one in your picture that?
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, I didn't know what
Yeah,
that was.
okay.
In addition to the bamboo removal and revegetation that's coming with that, as further mitigation, our client's proposing a scenic easement over the eastern 100 feet of the property, absent the driveway. So there would be a 8,440 square foot scenic easement that's being proposed over the eastern portion of the property. To effectuate that, the parking area that was noted as when you first walk in on the right-hand side, that's going to be relocated up closer to the house. It's currently approximately 2 feet from the wetlands. It will now be approximately 6.5 from the wetlands and 20 from that new pocket wetlands and 25 foot from the larger eastern wetland. So this provides additional continuity for the scenic easement and for the wetlands and the native vegetation. So if you see here, this will all be removed, so that way the scenic easement covers that whole square, and this area here will be replanted with native vegetation contiguous to the wetlands.
Where's the pocket wetland on there?
It's right here.
Out here.
Yeah, it's formed over top of the leaching pools from when they were installed a few years ago, I believe 2020, the area. So we have that chart that shows the 3 driveway configurations. If we could pull that up, we appreciate it. Thank you. The current proposal reduces the driveway by 226 square feet. When compared to what was approved in 2016, that driveway, it was 456 square feet larger than what we're proposing now. So we're less than what's there and less than what was previously approved in 2016. We understand that small wetland was not present at the time of the 2016 approval. However, at that time, the board approved coverage of 7,891 square feet building coverage of 2,312 square feet, and clearing of 15,498 square feet. As part of the current application, proposes 127 square feet less in total coverage and 4,960 square foot less clearing, in addition to providing substantial scenic easement that was not part of that 2016 approval. Through the revegetation of multiple areas on the property, overall clearing will be reduced by 676 square feet. So in addition to that parking area that's being revegetated, there's that area that was shown in the first photos where the like pop-up shed was, the like carport, that will be revegetated. And there's approximately 800 square feet along the top of the bluff that will also be revegetated from lawn with native vegetation. So there's been will be significant revegetation done at the property, in addition to the 3,000 square feet that will be the bamboo being removed and revegetated with. So we feel that this benefit to the property and to the environment and the neighboring wetlands is a significant mitigation for the request that we're making today.
Can you do me a favor and clarify the total lot coverage? You're saying it's decreasing? Because the survey is saying it's increasing.
Which survey are you looking at, Ron?
Total lot coverage, maybe, am I looking at the right survey?
31st.
I believe.
25, 'cause this is just showing it decreasing slightly.
Oh, maybe, okay, so maybe I'll pull that up. Maybe I
Total
might be looking at the wrong one, David, so let me pull that up.
So this, there,
All right, I'll thank you. Which one?
October 31.
10/31/25.
Okay.
Yes, the coverage is increasing, the building coverage is increasing, total coverage is decreasing, and clearing is decreasing.
Got it.
But that doesn't include, because you're now removing 300 some odd square feet of deck from the application, right? So that's not reflected.
No, this application does not include that deck.
Oh,
The survey, these numbers, there's no deck on this survey.
Already, okay.
So that's already been removed from that,
Thank you.
that number.
I thought you just made that decision, sorry.
That's been made since the analysis memorandum came out and was resubmitted. Is there any other questions at the moment?
Are you finished?
No,
Oh, good.
No,
I'll wait till you're
Sorry,
done.
my
no,
bad.
that's quite all right. As we just mentioned, the carport and the shed do increase the building coverage by 672 square feet from what's existing, 572 square foot from what was approved in 2016. However, any runoff from these structures will be captured by the dry wells that would be located in the driveway and adjacent to it, outside of the scenic easement. So no detriment will come from any sort of runoff from these structures. The carport is open on 3 sides and it's going to be over the existing pervious driveway. That will be a new, I believe, quartz, but still pervious driveway underneath it. So it's mounted on sonotubes, so there's no foundation under it per se. It's essentially just being built over the pervious driveway.
What about
The shed.
Oh, that was my question. The shed.
Okay. The shed is proposed at 128 square feet. It's 16 by 8. It's right adjacent to the parking area. The existing residence does not have a basement or a garage. It does have a crawl space, but that is not readily accessible for any sort of storage. The small storage area that's part of the cabana is not enough for standard storage for exterior stuff here, kayaks, stuff like that as well, outdoor equipment can all be, we need space for that. So this location provides the maximum convenience and utility for our client while dealing with the constraints of having wetlands on all sides of this property. It will be set back 10 foot from the pro scenic easement, and the area to the east of it will be revegetated where that carport, that car structure is currently sitting that was in the picture. Again, any runoff from this structure will be captured by the dry wells. Did you have a question about this?
Does the
Shed.
shed have footings or is there any excavation involved?
There would
shed?
be, yes.
How, could you talk about that a little bit?
Oh, this is the shed right here. Shed,
Which plans?
Typically, it would only go down 3 feet.
this,
I just wanna,
Yeah.
this.
That I didn't remove, I'm sorry.
The plans that were submitted do show it on footings, but we can do that on sonotubes as well to minimize the disturbance for it.
I think that would be more appropriate.
Yeah, so that way we could eliminate the need for the disturbance for any sort of footings for it. So we'd be happy to make that change, and we could obviously submit drawings as necessary.
What's the total capacity of the dry wells that you're talking about?
Sure.
David,
I believe they have it already.
it's a 2-inch.
This is the engineer.
It's a 2-inch rainfall.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, it says it's a 2-inch rainfall event.
Thanks, Shannon.
I'll look up this. I got it.
That right here.
There's six dry wells, and each one has a 42.24 cubic foot capacity. And we do not have, the engineer's not here with us this evening, but that was designed to capture not only the runoff from the carport and the shed, but the entire length of the driveway and the parking area by the house. So if you see, I don't know if you can tell in that picture, there's, I believe, 4 drains down the northern side of the driveway as it comes in that are all linked together into these 6 dry wells.
Pretty thorough.
Mhm. Are we done on the driveway? Can we go back to the shed for 1 second since we're
Sure.
on it? So it's a small structure, but was there, I think I'm looking at the right site on the survey, but given that it is a small structure, was there another way to optimize the position, between its utility and getting it further from the wetlands, or?
Well, part of the issue is the driveway's 150 feet long
Right.
to the parking area. So we do need area there to be able to turn around as well as have a car or 2 parked at that time. So that's why the shed is brought right up to the side of that parking area. Anywhere north of that, you have the additional wetland and the sanitary system. So that really provides, we felt the maximum convenience and utility for our client, while also not putting it any closer to the wetland.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's wetlands north, south, east, and west. So
I'm sure that you stared at it all very closely. Just
Any other
here
questions?
and here.
no, I'm almost done.
Oh,
So I'll just run through a quick little summary here then. So the benefit we're providing here as part of this application decreasing the total coverage by 113 square feet, proposing an 8,400 square foot scenic easement, relocating the parking area that's 2 feet from the wetlands and revegetating that area to provide continuity for the native vegetation and wetlands, revegetation along the bluff crest, removing and revegetating the 3,000 square feet of bamboo, decreasing the overall clearing on the property by 676 square feet, and adding a upgrade to the septic system to an IA system, as well as providing dry wells for these proposed structures and for the driveway. This project is consistent with 255, 551 of the town code. Due to the wetlands located on and adjacent to the property, any improvements would require a natural resources special permit. The application locates the proposed structures in the most appropriate places outside of any wetland and has shown that no wetland will be degraded or lost to allow for these structures. In fact, with the installation of the upgraded sanitary system, this 8,440 square foot easement, 113 square foot decrease in total coverage, 676 square foot decrease in clearing will be a net benefit to the wetlands and the community. To this end, there's no evidence in the TAM that these proposed structures will have a negative impact on the wetlands. So the grant of this variance will not produce any undesirable change in the neighborhood or community, will not create a detriment to nearby properties. Properties will benefit from all of the mitigation that we've been proposed here for the health of the wetlands and native communities. There is no feasible alternative methods to achieving this benefit. The lot's constrained, that was noted in the 2016 approval as well. The proximity to the wetlands on and adjacent to the property, there's no way to avoid variances for any sort of structure on this property. The carport is over a pervious driveway already, an area that's been previously disturbed. The shed, as we have mentioned that you asked, that could easily be on sonotubes to reduce any sort of disturbance for that as well. And so is the carport on sonotubes. So it's a minimal disturbance, and any sort of runoff from these structures is captured by the dry wells. We understand that variances can be considered self-created, but however, such self-creation is not dispositive. I think we've shown that these variances are minimum necessary to alleviate the difficulty for our client without impacting the surrounding wetlands. Again, I did mention there's no garage, there's no basement for storage. So we recognize the property is constrained, and I believe that this application has done its best to fit the requirements of our client while also providing a net benefit to the wetlands in the neighborhood. So I'm done if you have any questions for me.
Questions?
Yes, I have a couple, but did you have?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, and I guess we'll hear from Brian as well, but I am curious, and I don't have the expertise on this, so that's why I'm asking. So you've got an emerging wetland or a newly sourced wetland that is partially over leaching fields, and those will remain. So I guess I understand not wanting to disturb the new wetland, but can you address at all what the impact, again, we'll hear from Brian, I'm sure, but I just wanted to get your take on, leaving leaching fields under wetlands. I don't know if that creates any potential.
I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'm not sure if
Right.
but I
Yeah.
So, Will Bowman, Land Use Ecological Services. As you're aware, the town of East Hampton defines wetlands based on the types of plant species that are present. So wetland indicator plant species have developed on this area. We We've attempted to, maintain that area and provide setbacks as feasible from that area, giving more, when given the choice, we're trying to provide greater setbacks from the natural or the original wetlands, but still protecting that area of natural vegetation that has developed on the leaching field.
I just want to move this presentation, keep moving it through. It's gone pretty long. But I think the question was dealing with more about the removal and the process of removal, am I right? And whether the disturbance,
That's what I heard.
the
them say.
disturbance to the wetlands. So are we removing the plants or you're abandoning the?
No, those wetlands are staying as
Right.
is. They will not be
So
disturbed.
The leaching field, the leaching things will just be abandoned and left there?
No, they'll stay there. They'll function. The
see.
plants developed on top of them, so we're just leaving them as is to provide
be hooked
habitat
up to
over
the
top
new-
of the original
Yes.
structure.
Got it, I see it. Yep.
From my understanding, there's the wetlands over top of the leaching structures does not create any issue for either the wetland or the leaching pools. I think that's your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I would like to hear from planning.
Brian?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Brian Frank on behalf of the Planning Department.
Brian, do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I do want to spend a minute just on the secret issue to make sure that the record is clear. The Planning Department supports the negative declaration. I'm glad the board issued one. As you know, a lot of the residential components of this application are type 2 actions under SECRA. The excavation in a regulated freshwater wetland is an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA. That makes the whole project an unlisted action. And that's why you have an EAF. You have a part 1 prepared by the applicant. You have a part 2 and 3 drafted by the Planning Department for the board's consideration. And the Planning Department does recommend a negative declaration because the Planning Department believes that the elements of this application that don't meet the NRSP or the variance standards don't require an environmental impact statement to evaluate those impacts and the eligibility with those permit standards. So the Planning Department supports the negative declaration that was issued by the board at the beginning of the hearing. So this property is improved with about a 2,800 square foot house. The property was extensively renovated back in 1984 and received a certificate of occupancy in 1985. The board saw this property most recently in 2016 when it was approved for a redeveloped largely where it is now, new house, new sanitary system. That was by a prior owner. That application has not been acted upon, so the structures approved in that application don't exist on the property right now. As David mentioned, and as the EAF notes, this house is essentially surrounded by wetlands. You have freshwater wetlands to the north, east, and south. You have the tidal wetlands of Lake Montauk to the west. East Lake Drive has a lot of areas of extensive freshwater wetlands, largely as a result of the very high silt and clay content in the soils there. There are a number of places along East Lake Drive where the wetlands are located on the east side of East Lake Drive. They're often culverted beneath East Lake Drive, and there are a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of places, but there are numerous places, if you know the area, there are a number of places where there are freshwater seeps that discharge into Lake Montauk, whether you call them seeps or drains or seasonal water courses, whatever. There is flowing surface water that flows into the lake, both to the north and the south of this property. I don't know whether this house was built on a natural high spot around those wetlands, or if it was filled. Doesn't really matter. There are a lot of places on the east side of East Lake Montauk and those moorlands there where you have high spots. You have a lot of knob and kettle topography, and those knobs rise up above the wetland. The vegetation on them and the soils are totally different than when you slope down to what's around them. So this could have been a natural high spot that was built on back in the day. And again, it doesn't matter too much, but I think that's a little bit more likely than the whole thing was wet and filled in. Nonetheless, the soils here drain very, very poorly, and I think that's evident if you take a look at the sanitary plan. A lot of silt and clay in the soils, and silt and clay don't drain. That's why we have perched wetlands above the true groundwater table, and the slopes here are what contribute to their flow down to the base of the watershed, which is the harbor. The wetland that formed, that 500 square foot wetland, formed around 2020, whether that was as a result of soil compaction or some other factor. It's kind of hard to say, but silts and clay as fine-grained particles compact very easy, and that reduces their porosity and their permeability even more. And that's probably what attributed to that area developing. The standing water in there was persistent well into the growing season of 2021. It became colonized by more wetland plants than not wetland plants, and that's why it was kind of hard to do anything but designate it as a wetland, because it really did meet all the criteria for it. About the sanitary system, just before I forget to mention it, there's no other better place for it. So the idea of digging out the leaching pools, which would eliminate that, it'd be hard. It would basically, eliminate that wetland. And that wetland is not the most important wetland to protect. The most important wetland to protect on the property is Lake Montauk, followed by the wetlands to the east and the north and the south, which are connected to the tidal wetlands in Lake Montauk. So that isolated 500 square foot, roughly, pocket wetland, as it's fairly described, is worth some conservation, but it is secondary to the more extensive wetlands around the property. I'd like to address the bamboo removal first. As David and I believe Will had mentioned, I'm not aware of any habitat benefit provided by bamboo. Bamboo is often broken up into two types, running and clumping types. There are a lot of genera out there. There are a lot of species within several different genera, and the running bamboo have become a real problem, and nobody should ever plant them, ever. The bamboo that you see along the northern property line, whether it's 2,000 square feet on the applicant's property, a total of 3,000 square feet, it does, as evidenced by Member Berger's photo, it does wrap around. It's along the shoreline there. It's some tough stuff too. It grows in almost everything. It does form, it grows rapidly. It forms these dense monocultures that crowd out everything else, and every year it just spreads and spreads a little bit more. And I can show you half a dozen examples east of, in Montauk alone, probably a lot more than half a dozen examples if I really looked. So it's a problem. There may be some environmental benefits, carbon sequestration, maybe some soil stability, but I wouldn't really call those, it doesn't outweigh the loss of habitat that occurs every year as these stands spreads. There are problems on private property. There are problems on public open space. It's damaging all kinds of subsurface infrastructure. It'll push its way through concrete foundation and metal piping, and it's really persistent stuff. There is a DEC permit that has been issued for this project. The DEC, the wetlands on the property don't show up on the DEC mapping system, even though the wetlands in the eastern portion of the property are pretty much identical to the wetlands on the east side of East Lake Drive. It's, the same plant and soil assemblage bisected by the road, but it's not mapped by the DEC. So the DEC's permit is strictly for a tidal wetland permit. It's an Article 25 permit. The planning department's greatest concern with the removal of the excavation of this bamboo is the sedimentation of Lake Montauk. Again, fine grain sediments get suspended in water very easily. They travel farther than coarse grain sediments than sand or gravel does. So it's the planning department's opinion that in conjunction with the bamboo excavation on here, diligent sediment management is crucial to protecting, in particular, the tidal wetlands of the lake. The sediment control can easily get overwhelmed in a heavy rainstorm when the soils are loose, and it's going to, there's no other, there's nothing that can substitute for the project manager, the owner, somebody's diligence in keeping track of when that happens, removing the sediment, and replacing the sediment fence with its wire backing when it becomes structurally compromised. If that happens, then I don't see much of an environmental impact from the bamboo removal, and if it doesn't happen, there's a big impact on the lake. The revegetation plan initially, the one that you have in the file, is a nice plan for other projects, but the bamboo, we'll see who wins here, the persistence of the owner or the persistence of the bamboo. I know the bamboo is not going to give up. You know, it's going to keep spreading. It's on the property to the north. The barrier that we'll describe will maybe stop it. It'll slow it down, at least for some time. But because of that, I think even though the idea of trees and shrubs in that area is commendable, you want something that's going to allow, you know, if you have woody vegetation in there, when you do get shoots of bamboo mixed in with them, and you will, they're going to be hard to remove. So I don't know what the best plants are, but they're probably grasses and sedges that also grow aggressively. They've got to be native, obviously, and have good coverage, because I have a feeling you're going to end up disturbing them at some point in the future, unfortunately. But again, the habitat there is so negligible that it's hard to quantify an impact from its removal. And that's why the planning department doesn't object to that portion of the project. The driveway has been revised consistent with the recommendations, which was in the EAF, which was to kind of keep the square footage of what you have there and reconfigure it accordingly. So eliminating that parking area in the eastern throat of the driveway and adding it to the cleared area is a rational, good use. And the planning department doesn't have any concern or objection to the plan. You know, we talk about pervious driveways a lot, and this is an appropriate location for a pervious driveway. But there's always any surface, any improved surface that's not vegetated does have a higher runoff coefficient. It's not, even grass does, you know, anything beyond the native woods do. So you do have some runoff from this driveway. It's unavoidable with gravel or anything else. And again, that water is draining into a dry well that's going into poorly drained soils. So the engineering plan looks sound. The engineer designed this for a 2-inch rainfall and to capture the runoff from the driveway. But we get a lot more than 2-inch rainfalls these days. We get multiple rainfalls. We get them in successive periods, and it is reasonable to expect them to get overwhelmed periodically and unavoidable unless you're punching all the way down to sand. And that's one of the reasons that the planning department thinks the carport is a poor candidate for a variance. These constraints on the property existed before the applicant bought the property. They've been well established on this property for a long time. Those variances are numerically substantial, basically an 80% reduction in setback to increase coverage in an area that has poor drainage now. The elimination of that carport allows the shed that's proposed to meet a much better wetland setback, and that shed is a stronger candidate for a variance because of its small size and square footage than the carport.
So you're saying leave the shed where it's proposed?
No,
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 no.
no, I'm
Oh,
saying
could be
if the
moved, okay.
carport is not part of the application,
Exactly.
there are better locations.
Better
And
location,
part of
okay.
your variance standards is variances are supposed to be the minimum necessary to relieve the practical difficulty, and an absence of alternatives that either eliminate the variance or require a lesser variance. And in this case, I think the elimination of the carport allows the shed to be relocated in a way that makes it a stronger variance candidate.
So Brian, are you saying that if the carport is eliminated, then the gravel underneath it would not be there? It would be more, would it be vegetated? Because
No.
I think we
No, it would
heard
still
that
be-
it's really just a
no.
cover over.
No, the driveway is the driveway, but
Okay.
adding a truly impervious surface, a roof over it, just adds to the drainage problems of this property.
Even though this impervious is not on the ground, you're saying just having the covering up above changes the dynamic?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't understand. Thank you.
Shrubs for the other areas of the revegetation are appropriate. I don't know that we have a detailed re-veg plan for the area that northern pullover that's proposed to be revegetated, but that should be matched to the surrounding vegetation to the extent possible. Some of the other, and the same is true for the area that houses that that tarped garage, that temporary structure that's shown to be revegetated down. That irregular area proposed for revegetation, just east of the house, it's hard to see how that could be naturalized in an area between the driveway and the house. And again, reducing clearing is always commendable. I don't know how practical that is, and if that ends up being eliminated from the revegetation, I don't really have an objection to it because I think it's going to just be hard to naturalize something that's in that location. Again, I think it's laudable that they proposed the scenic easement in the eastern portion of the property. I can't tell you what the nexus is between that scenic easement and the structures that are proposed farther to the west. It's commendable, but in its intent. But I'm not sure what the nexus is there. I think that's pretty much the points that I wanted to make in this application. If anybody has any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
How does this application compare or relate to the 2016 decision by the zoning board?
I think it's apples and oranges, and that's why I didn't get into a detailed comparison in the assessment. Number one, that the 2016 project was never implemented. Number two, I think it's always difficult to compare a complete redevelopment of a property with adding accessory structures to structures that are already there.
However, the constraints of the property were considered back then and as they are now.
Yes.
Does the mitigation this time around offset those differences, those increases? And I understand it's difficult to get, and maybe that's what we're going to wrestle with.
And to answer that question, I would look at the setbacks that were approved in 2016, the overall clearing coverage and the continuity of the and contiguousness of any revegetation that was established at the time, and even factor out that 500 square foot pocket wetland that didn't exist at the time, and that's the best way to compare those differences and benefits. And since I didn't do that, I don't want to give you an answer off the top of my head.
Is that information in the record already? Okay.
It is.
The existing conditions.
Oh, that just went in today, right? I didn't see it. Okay. And then may I ask what happens, that 2016 approval you said was done by a prior owner, but it's that application is, aside from not being acted on, is it defunct? Has it been abandoned? Does it still run with the land? I'm trying to, like, what
I wouldn't call
happens
it
to it?
defunct or abandoned. At worst, it expired.
Okay.
And in that case, they could apply to extend it. The conditions changed on the property with the addition of that wetland, so
Mhm.
I don't know that that's the best candidate for another extension, but that's the status of the application. I would say it's expired.
Is there something that this applicant can do that as mitigation to say, sort of, I don't know how it works, but like it's extinguished, like it can't come back, it can't be resurrected?
I don't think so. I mean, they could apply for whatever they want to apply for.
They'd have to apply again, you're saying they would have to?
To extend the 2016 application or make a new application similar to it,
Okay,
something like that, yeah.
thank you.
So Brian, obviously concerned about potential impacts with runoff controls. Is the mitigation being offered to install dry wells enough to prevent potential impacts with erosion and runoff controls? I mean, is that enough, or should it require like additional fencing? I mean,
I think it's enough to mitigate the driveway redevelopment, and I think it's appropriate in conjunction with the driveway redevelopment. It doesn't have anything to do with the bamboo removal. That's its own.
I mean, in terms of
That's
the
almost a separate project, a separate activity with, especially because there's nothing structural being proposed in it. It's kind of its own animal.
And how do you feel about the suggestion that sonotubes be installed under the shed and carport to maximize this, to minimize disturbance?
There's less disturbance from any type of post foundation than there is from a poured concrete slab where you've got to compact it even more. But the impact is really from the roof, that adding impervious surfaces from increasing the roof surfaces on the property.
Thank you, Brian.
The bamboo problem, and it will be a problem for them going forward. It's nice to say that we'll keep on top of it, but I think you pointed out accurately. I was thinking while they were making their presentation that planting anything in that disturbed area looks like a loser to me, because any movement by bamboo into that area is going to have to be removed again. And so you plant a plant that now is being invaded by the bamboo, that plant either is disturbed or removed. So it seems as if this is to move forward or even partially move forward, they would have to make a bit of a statement long-term about how this maintenance is going to happen. I mean, as long as there's 1,000 feet of bamboo on the other side, you're not stopping it from coming over. Like you say, that plastic shield they're going to put up will do something, but not long-term, not long-term.
Well, you have to try to revegetate it with something to stabilize the soils. You do have a water course that runs through it, and I did mean to say that I agree with Will's proposal that a meandering water course of variable width, whether it's 2 feet wide or up to 2 feet wide and a foot deep, but what you don't want is a straight channelization. You don't want a straight channel that runs right to Lake Montauk. So you want something that meanders a little bit, but the only way to hold it there is to have vegetation that stabilizes the soil. Otherwise, it's going to kind of gully and try to straighten itself out over time.
Yeah, so I'm agreeing with what you said earlier, and that is that it does call for grasses rather than woody plants. I mean, bamboo, as you pointed out, is a nightmare all over Montauk. Wherever it's happened, it takes over. And we're leaving a significant amount on another property. They can't control that at all. And they'll do the best they can. But I see this as a long-term maintenance problem for them, not one that's going to go away, not one that's going to be handled in any easy way, right? That's what we're basically saying about this.
Yeah, I haven't seen, I've seen bamboo removal projects where the bamboo came back like 10 years later, kind of oddly. So it is going to be a long-term management for this property.
And as far as there's that, the far west, there's that revegetated area there that was added. That's giving us something of a significant buffer down to the tidal wetland. That additional area that's added to the west.
Yes, yeah,
I mean,
because I believe All or
Lawn
most
now.
of that is lawn right now.
Yeah, it's all
so-
lawn now. Yeah, it's all lawn now. So that'll be revegetated there. And then we just have access down from that, the staircase. One other question I had, I know it's not in front of us, hasn't been mentioned, but I was wondering how much work has happened to the house since the 16 ZBA approval. It seems significant to me. I was on site several years ago because we had an incident to go down and examine that, maybe in 2000 or 21 perhaps. And the house has significantly different look to it than it has now. Has that been through a series of building permits?
Yes, there was a building permits issued for windows and door. I didn't include any of the photos in the file, but the first time I went there, they were redoing the siding and they hadn't started on any of the window and doors yet, but I believe it looked like it was all exterior. There were new vapor barriers up and that was if you wanted those photos, I can get them to you. They
No,
don't
that's right. You
really
can
show
tell.
much except stripping the siding and in the process of
I think we
replacing
have
it.
photos from an earlier take down there where we talked about a completely different condition in the exterior of the house. It's completely, it's been renovated significantly, the exterior has. Okay,
A facelift for sure.
yeah, yeah.
A little more. I don't think that cabana was there several years ago. Section on this.
I believe the cabana was.
Was it there?
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at the survey that you approved in 2016, but I believe that has been there.
Any other questions?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Is there anybody in the public that would like to address this application? Matt, is there anybody online?
Stand by 1 second, please. And this is Matt Chapman calling in from LTV, just making sure that all lines are open and clear, in which they are. And you have 0 additional callers. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I
David, you have any closing?
Yeah, we've got a few comments from both people.
Just keep this short, please. It was a very long presentation, and we really want to move on. So just please keep it short. Hi, Shannon, how are you?
Shannon McCaffrey, Dewey's Planning.
You swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I just wanted to address quickly Brian's comments regarding the driveway and the runoff that it creates. The Rayner Group, in designing the drainage, did account for a factor of safety. Typically, gravel driveways are designed with a coefficient of 0.75, and they designed the runoff with a coefficient of 1 to account for the poor draining soils. So there is extra drainage to account for that. And also, I would just like to reiterate that whether there's the carport or the gravel driveway, there is drainage being accounted for and directed into dry wells. It would be the same thing, because the driveway layout is needed to allow for trucks or other vehicles to turn while the resident is still parked in the parking spot, and so that they don't have to back all the way out the driveway.
Thank you.
Okay. No. Let's see.
Keep short.
Sure, very short. I understand the concern with the location of the shed. We'd ask that if you do, we can take a little further look at that, possibly come up with an alternate location for that would increase the setbacks. I don't feel it'd be necessary for us to come back for that. I think if we left the record open for a written submission with a revised plan for the shed, possibly that would be sufficient. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I didn't see online, maybe I missed it, the DEC permit under Goldman. I saw them for what looked like the property to the north that were in the file. I don't know who got,
I don't know. Do you know?
I saw some incompletes on,
It was submitted.
They were submitted.
okay, were they,
David, how long do you think you'll need to keep the record open?
Just, I think 2 weeks would be sufficient.
You have another meeting, or?
Do we have a motion to keep the record open for 2 weeks?
okay. Should we leave it open longer, because there's going to be a
It's probably going to have to go into
lapse
the new year.
into the new year?
Right, for the
Yeah, I
next
wanna
meeting,
keep it
because
a
there's no
little-
meeting to.
January 6th. What?
January 6th is the first meeting in the new year.
We only have one more meeting, work session next week.
I mean, we only need 2 weeks to put in the written submission, so whatever you guys need for your scheduling purposes is fine by us, but that's
Fine.
all we
Okay,
need.
that's perfect.
Okay. So do we want to January 6th? Okay. All right. The applicant,
Brian?
No, he probably wants to say it.
I don't have any objection to the applicants trying to provide amendments to the application, but if, I do want to say, and if that's what the submission is limited to, then I think that's fine, but if there's kind of a lengthy kind of new argument, then I do just want to remind the board that you have the right to reopen the hearing, continue the hearing. If it's kind of cut and dry, but if there's a whole substantive legal argument about why this should be approved, then I'm going to respectfully ask you to consider reopening the hearing so
Noted.
that a complete record can be made.
okay.
I appreciate Brian's concern that it's not my intention. So if you, literally for 2 weeks for possible alternate location for the shed, no legal submission, no memorandum, that's all we're looking for.
Thank you.
So if you want to limit it to that, we're happy with it. Thank you.
So January 6th. With the application of Goldman Trust at 51 East Lake Drive in Montauk, tax map 300-020-02-16. Make a motion to close the public hearing, leave the written record open for updated submission from the applicant regarding the shed.
I'll second it.
Concur.
Concur.
Concur. Thank you. Thank you.
I say till January 6th.
No, it's January 6th. Chatted it.
Until January 6th.
Our next application is Charlie OFP LL6 at 59 Sandcastle Lane, Amagansett, Suffolk, tax map number 300-152-2-28.10. Size and location is 35,482 square feet at 59 Sandcastle Lane, Amagansett. Description is to demolish the existing approximately 2,382 square foot residence and construct a new 3,910 square foot two-story residence with 600 square foot of garage, 637 square foot of swimming pool, 200 square foot of pool house, pool equipment, fencing, 1,830 square feet of first floor deck and porch, 1,528 square foot of second story deck and porch, 74 square feet of spa, outdoor shower, new sanitary system, and to temporary clear 6,604 square feet of beach vegetation with jurisdiction of freshwater wetlands, duneland, and beach vegetation. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the East Hampton Town Code and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is A residence, AE flood zone, elevation 10, the secret class is type 2. Member Mary?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I visited the site for the field report. Just to orient everyone, Sandcastle we're all familiar with the Beach Hampton neighborhood. This is the development that's just to the east. So Sandcastle is the next road after Gilbert's Path. So just to orient, and it was subdivided in larger lots than we're used to in other parts of this area. Okay, so towards the very end of Sandcastle, you get to a small cul-de-sac that you can see here, and there are properties that come off of it. I think this is just a view of that cul-de-sac. Next slide. This is a picture I'm looking, you can see the house that exists right now on this property in the distance, the dune land rising off of that cul-de-sac. You can see it was properly posted on the visibly on the street. There's the driveway is to the right of that post in the photo. Next slide. just a closer view of the notice. The date was correct on it. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to head up the driveway towards the house. Most of my photos, I'm obviously going to show you some of the existing structure, but since that's proposed to be demolished, and there's issues around the clearing, the temporary clearing, so I'm going to really show the conditions of the dune land around the existing structure and in areas that I think will be disturbed. Next slide. All right, so I've got up the driveway. I've turned my back basically towards the house, just so you can see that I'm shooting back towards that cul-de-sac. You can see the dune land on the right. Next slide. Okay, so I'm at the top of the driveway. This is a pretty full shot of the existing structure. And they're in the plan. There's a set of plans that shows the new footprint over the existing footprint. You can't, this picture doesn't capture it, but to the right of where the house is, there's a fairly, sizable decking area with a pool. Next slide. And then I took a little bit of shot of that decking. Obviously the pool's closed up. I guess I'm looking east across the end of that decking. Next slide. Again, just looking back towards the existing house. Next slide. Okay, so now I've come outside of that decking. I'm on kind of the westernmost side of the existing pool decking. And basically, any time you come away from the structure of the house, you are right in mostly pristine dune land with protected dune vegetation. And so there's a little bit of clearing here, but it's mostly intact. Next slide. Again, so I think I just turned my back in the other direction. So the pool fencing would be to my back, and I'm looking more west. You can see some of the topography and the dune land here. Next slide. Again, now I'm a little more on the southern side of the house. And the decking, by the way, this is not an oceanfront property. The houses you see in the distance are actually the houses that are on the eastern end of Marine Boulevard. So this subdivision kind of tops out, beyond, like north of Marine Boulevard. Next slide. And you can see again, all this dune land is directly around the existing structures of the house. And in the survey, I think a lot of this will be cleared temporarily, or depends where you look at the new structures going. Next slide. I stepped back from the house again. Now I'm going to come around the east side of the house. Next slide. More dune land. Looking east, I believe, to an adjacent property. This is very close up to the house, this topography and the vegetation. Next slide. So I'm looking back towards the house. The right side of the house is getting closer to back where the front was in the driveway. Next slide. Yep, so more vegetation right around the existing structure. Next slide. It's just how the east side facade appears. And then to the very right of the photo would be kind of back to the front of the house and the vegetation there. Next slide. That might be it. Is that it? Are there more?
Thank you.
Well, I don't know whether, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just continue. Again, just trying to shoot as much of the dune land that will be touched more than obviously the existing structure. Anything next? Yep. Next slide. I just took a view from up on the higher deck again to see some of the neighboring properties for context. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. And then just another shot. I didn't catch it up front, but that's a shot of Sandcastle Lane part of it. I think that's it. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Good evening, Chair.
Angeline. Richard A. Hammer, I'm here representing Charlie OFP. They're the owners of the property at 59 Sandcastle Lane. We're seeking permits to redevelop the property with a new residence, pool house, decking, other improvements depicted on the proposed plan, and notice in tonight's hearing. I'm also here with Britton Bistrian and Sean Webb, the architect. Just if you have questions I don't have, I can't complain about the prior hearing. I should never complain about people talking long at zoning board hearings, so I'm going to keep that. We've been here a while, so I'm going to try and be quick and address a few points. The lot, as Member Meering pointed out, is part of the Dunes at Napeak subdivision. That was approved by the town in 1981. Most of these lots are similar in size, about an acre in size. I think it was a clustered subdivision, so some of them are smaller, so you could get larger reserved areas. Looks like this house was built right after the subdivision was approved, probably around 1982, thereabouts. It's a little different than some of the areas to the west in Beach Hampton, where you have these small non-conforming lots and a totally different area, basically. It just has its own character. You'll see the larger houses protruding out of the duneland, et cetera. I wanted to recognize the only relief requested here is an NRSP associated with the beach vegetation. All of our proposed improvements meet wetland setbacks and all other zoning requirements and are proposed out of jurisdiction. I think Member Meering's photos, we really value the dunescape on this property. I mean, it's a really unique area. It's something you don't see anywhere else in the town. It's a lovely landscape. We made great efforts to preserve and protect it with our planning. The existing house predates the town's NRSP regulations, probably in 1982, and these things were adopted by the town right around 1984. As I recall, this might even have been one of the subdivisions that led the town to regulate dune vegetation, basically, at the time. My client did have the opportunity to seek to grandfather this application in the prior gross floor area limitations. We did have an active application at that time, but we really didn't have the interest in maximizing gross floor area on this of the residents. We thought the proposed design was consistent with the natural aspect, and we didn't want to overpower it with the structure. We made great efforts to fit all of our proposed redevelopment within the limits of clearing and disturbance of the existing house in accordance with the NRSP regulations. And this is the graphic that Member Meering was referencing. This is just a colorized version where you can see the red is the outline in red is the existing improvements, and it's kind of got that funky arc deck right here that'll make it stand out. The overlay in blue is what we're proposing to put over it. So it largely follows it as much as we could. Current sanitary design to code using an AI system is sort of a variable outside of our control. The sanitary system will expand in size as well as the area that it occupies based on the shallow groundwater system we're using. We're proposing to revegetate all these areas to disturb to accommodate the conclusion of construction using beach vegetation. All the metrics of the town code are being complied with. Our lot coverage is increasing over the existing structures. I think that's explained very well in the TAM that we're removing lot coverage, total lot coverage and putting in more lot coverage, basically larger roof surfaces because the house is getting larger. But the total lot coverage as a whole is actually decreasing from the existing development by a few hundred square feet. Our clearing will be about 900 square feet more than currently existing based on our ability to use the envelopes efficiently. I would agree to all the suggested mitigation from the planning department has suggested, including the expansion of the scenic easement to the north and northeast of the existing driveway. That's certainly a lovely area that should be protected as part of the entrance to the property, and it's also visible from the areas off of the road frontage. I did want to discuss the sanitary system. Abandoning in place is a very beneficial suggestion. Basically, the existing sanitary would be pumped out, cleaned out, and filled with clean sand and just left to remain on site. The actual removal of the system, the rings, et cetera, would bring lots of additional disturbance to the site, and is worth noting the existing system is located within the minimum required wetland setback, where the new sanitary system was proposed on the west side of the residence. It's also proposed in a relatively flat area. You don't see the undulations in the topography in that area, and it was done to maximize its setback from the wetland. It complies with with all setbacks. It's also a logical location adjacent to the building envelope that will not require further clearing outside of what we intend to be a closely followed edge of disturbance. It also will be an area that is easily serviceable if they had to come and maintain the system, pump it out, et cetera. It's right next to the driveway. I should also mention that the New York State DEC issued a letter of non-jurisdiction on the project. I have it here with me, but I think it's also in your files, and I can submit it if you need it. Other than that, I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
What's happening with the disturbed or excavated soils?
The disturbed or excavated soils, it's largely clean sand, basically. I think
Well,
What?
yeah, well, what's happening during construction? What's the protocol? Because typically, I mean, this is delicate dunes, so are we maintaining the soils on site for reuse?
I believe
What's
that they
going to
would be.
happen? Where are you going to store them?
Okay. You guys have? Yeah, sure.
6,000.
Yeah, it's just a lot of clearing, and I think that needs to be addressed on this property.
Oh, good evening.
Brittany, you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. I know in preliminary discussions with the contractor, we had discussed, because we are removing a house and removing a foundation, there's going to be some areas that need to be filled in. And as well, the septic system, because the existing system is pretty extensive, reusing that sand on site and pumping and abandoning the septic, a lot of that sand can be used there. But the intent would be to keep it all there. And we'd be happy to, as a condition of approval, do a cut and fill or construction protocol as a condition.
So I think that the concern, well, there's two concerns when we're dealing with properties like that. What happens to the soils and reuse of the existing soil so that the vegetation on its own can grow back to see that's maintained in the soil, and also the maintenance of the duneland character of the property when completed, right? We want to see those rolling topographies and stuff, which I think you're maintaining. I think you're setting out. So those are two major concerns that we always have when you're doing such a pristine location like this, because it's one of the most pristine in the town.
And it's definitely beneficial to the applicant and to the project as a whole to keep those soils on site. Sand is expensive. I can speak from experience on that one. To use the soil that we have to backfill the new foundation. The new foundation is a little bit larger. I think that would be good practice to do that. So however we want to memorialize that in any approval, we'd be happy with it, either as a construction protocol or all soils need to be stockpiled on site in a certain location. Maybe we could identify where that is. Probably make the most sense over the septic and do that last. But we'd be happy. I'm sure there's some logistical construction protocol document that we could hash that out.
So just following up on the chair's thoughts, I think we've learned in similar applications that one of the reasons you want to protect the soils or the sands is because they have certain
Like Horizon.
right, that will regenerate, there's vegetation there that you just can't plant. So I guess that you wouldn't necessarily want to use that for filling in the basement, right?
Well, I believe that what you're talking about are the top layers. So, and traditionally on projects like this, I've seen conditions that say excavated soils will be retained on site in a sediment controlled area for reuse on the site. And clearly we would use the top layers to create the undulating topography, and the lower levels would be more applicable for backfilling. But I don't think we would object to stockpiling, maintaining them on site in a sediment controlled area. And if we do have to remove any of the soils at the conclusion of construction, we would come back to the board and explain that for the board's approval. But I don't think we're going to need to. Looking at the cut and fill, just the aspect of the site, it's all clean sand, and our intention wasn't to.
Yeah, and staging becomes an issue too, but maybe with what Britton says, you stage the septic at a later point or whatever.
Yeah, the septic area is
Staging,
sequencing is an issue.
So the TAM does question the scope of the 66,584 square feet of temporary clearing. And, you know, we've gone through this on other applications too. So can you address, I mean, do you have a 64% increase in GFA, the lot coverage, not total, but the lot coverage is, you know, going up, I think, 1,500 square feet. But it seemed, I guess just address why 6,584 square feet of temporary clearing
Well,
is
obviously.
needed. Is there a way to, you know, take that down?
Part of it is because we're removing a structure that is oriented differently than the proposed structure. It's just a different structure, and it's oriented in a different way. So we need to access the structure to remove it, and that is part of the temporary clearing, is to get access to these areas to remove. However, this is not a complex revegetation. I mean, you can look at it. It looks like most of the photos you were showing were lichens that are on the ground. I think they call them reindeer lichens and beach vegetation. So I think we can, even though the temporary clearing number is large, we did that based on what we think we need to access the site to remove the improvements and then to construct the new improvements. Most of the temporary clearing is probably associated with the removal of the improvements. You know, if you just follow the footprint of the existing versus proposed, you know, most of everything else we're doing is within that area of the proposed, the existing disturbance on the site already, so.
The comment in the TAM is the primary concern for the board should be to ask the question, has enough been done to limit the amount of damage to the existing dunescape, which we're addressing right now. And I certainly like Britton's proposal that you use as was mentioned by the chair, we use the area with the septic. But I think that has to be noted for us in the future. I think as an addition to your protocol, I think we should have a staging area and a deposit area for that material. I think that should be noted so we fully understand as this project moves forward. You can't look at photos of a site in East Hampton any longer and see something much nicer than this in terms of dunescape. So it's our major concern. I think that you brought up some good points, but I do think before we make any attempt at approving this, we have to see that that's been noted, that these areas have been specified, and we know that the people beyond this group, the construction people, and and all that, understand exactly what the limitations are on this.
Well, I do know our project landscaper is Jimmy Grimes and Grimes Land Design. I mean, there's nobody that I think knows the board's concerns better than Jimmy Grimes and can restore this property, and he's been retained. I would have thought to bring him here tonight, but I didn't understand that was going to be something of paramount importance based on the scope of the improvements, but it certainly makes sense to me. In terms of moving forward, I think we could quickly identify a staging area on the property and a construction protocol to get this in front of the board. I'd like it to be in front of the board before you're done meeting for the year, basically. So I think we could put that together very quickly and have it for you at the next meeting, if that's what the board would suggest. Or
we don't have a re-veg plan, right, in the file?
Typically on these, it's beach grass, columns of 3, 18-inch centers is standard re-veg. It's not a very there's some pitch pine. We can hear from
Tyler maybe on that, is what they think. Any other questions?
All right. Yeah.
Thank you. Tyler?
Tyler Borsak for the planning department.
Hey, Tyler, do you swear for him to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So this parcel is located in the southern end of Sandcastle Lane in Amagansett. The project before the board is to demolish the existing residence, associated structures, and construct a new 3,910 square foot two-story residence with a 600 square foot attached garage, decking, porches, swimming pool, pool house, outdoor shower, and associated structures. The project requires a natural resources special permit for the clearing of beach vegetation, construction within dune land area, and minimal work within jurisdiction of freshwater wetlands to the north. The dune land habitat in this area of Amagansett consists of maritime dune land and maritime heathland habitats as defined by the New York State Natural Heritage Program. The maritime heathland habitat is ranked by the Heritage Program as one of the least common in the state and has become less common throughout Long Island and the Mid-Atlantic region. This area is one of the few remaining areas of town that contains high-quality, pristine duneland vegetation. The premises are improved with an existing residence, which is surrounded by pristine rolling duneland. The depressional wetland exists near the road right-of-way to the north of the property. The scenic easement is proposed in order to cover the majority of the significant duneland topography on the parcel as mitigation. This parcel has town-protected beach vegetation such as reindeer lichen, state-protected pine barren sandwort, bearberry, and beech heather. With such valuable existing vegetation across the undisturbed area of the parcel, the preservation of those areas should be paramount in any application on the property. The best way to maintain duneland characteristics on vegetation on parcels is to limit their clearing and disturbance from the beginning, rather than trying to reestablish it after construction is completed. The proposed improvements represent a relatively similar level of development to what is currently on the parcel, with a shift from a smaller residence and expansive decking to a larger residence with more reduced decking in order to keep development in the same approximate area as what currently exists. A table was included in the assessment that shows the approximate gross floor area coverages and clearing proposed, which was discussed. Overall, it appears that development is in the same rough area as the existing, keeping construction away from the most significant topography on the parcel and also minimizing additional temporary clearing. While the gross floor area is increasing by 64% and lot coverage by 85%, the total lot coverage is proposed to decrease by 220 square feet, and clearing will increase by 903 square feet after revegetation is completed. Temporary clearing for construction totals 6,584 square feet, which should be reduced if they aren't required to do clearing for the abandoning the old sanitary system as well. It appears the applicants have designed a project to remain within the same approximate total coverage while shifting the location of the proposed structures to remain within the X-flood zone area on the parcel, avoiding the AE 10 and 13 zones to the east and west sides of the property. That said, the first floor elevation of the residence is proposed at 14.5 feet, which would meet the new requirements coming up in January for an AE 10 flood zone if it were within that zone. The proposed redevelopment keeps much of the structures within the footprint of the existing house, decking, pool, and driveway, with some expansion further southwest and reductions on the southeast side. The applicants have proposed a redevelopment that is in the same approximate area as the existing improvements, limits disturbance of the most sensitive topography on the parcel, and keeps expansion of the structures into undisturbed areas of the lot to a minimum. The largest area of new disturbance is for the proposed sanitary system, which is located on the far west side of the property in a relatively flat area just south of the existing driveway. The proposed sanitary system is substantially further from wetlands to the north and likely meet a better separation to groundwater compared to the existing three-ring system. It was discussed about just abandoning that old sanitary system rather than removing it to limit disturbance. As mitigation for the redevelopment of the parcel, the most significant slopes are proposed to be protected within a scenic easement, aside from two areas to the north of the proposed and existing development, and the applicant seemed okay with our proposal to include some of that in a scenic easement. There is some significant topography over there, so protecting those in perpetuity is important. Additionally, applicants are proposing to revegetate approximately 5,681 square feet of clearing for construction, including over the proposed sanitary system. An existing sanitary system should be removed, although that may not be required any longer. They discussed beach vegetation. I think that'd probably be fine in this case. I don't think anything more substantial is required. In this area, there's not a lot of woody vegetation other than like bearberry and things like that, but I don't think we normally would see that in a revegetation plan. So I think at least kick-starting the vegetation in the area with beach grass and then letting the other vegetation sort of seed itself over time is probably a realistic option in this case, especially reutilizing those sandy soils, which have that seed bank in them, is important in that. Aside from including more of the sensitive areas of the dune land in scenic easements, the proposed mitigation is in keeping with similar development in this area. While the proposed project is in the same approximate area of the parcel as the existing development, the quality of the surrounding dune land and vegetation cannot be understated. And the board should be sure that the proposed improvements are appropriate and the project is designed in order to minimize unnecessary disturbance. Other than that, I can answer any questions that you might have.
Obviously, you understand what concerns we have, but in this diagram here, you have the yellow dotted line, I assume, is the clearing limits during construction, which I assume would be the project limiting fence would be set there. Right. What about the driveway? I'm concerned about the dune feature to the east of the driveway, and I think we need to make sure construction limiting fence travels at that, because
certainly, yeah, we could update
the biggest problem, as you know, and I know, is you can have construction creep on a project, and I want to limit construction creep.
Certainly, yeah, that shouldn't be difficult to include a new sketch or to include it in the determination.
Come on up, Sean.
Sean White from Forum Arch.
Yeah, you want to, do you swear affirm to tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I just want to note that there is right now a rope drive, kind of fencing along the driveway, and the owner eventually would like to get rid of it, but that could certainly stay in place, which would certainly limit any trucks from going into that area.
Thank you.
Questions? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, questions for Tyler. Come on.
Tyler, sorry. All right. Thank you. So number one, what is the square footage of the lot that will be covered by the scenic easement?
I have no idea. It might say it.
Did it say it? I didn't see the square footage. Is it that proposed?
711 is what they're noting on the survey,
Yeah,
plus an additional, I don't know, maybe 4,000 for the one that we had suggested. So maybe around 14,000, 15,000, something like that.
I'm sorry, the 4,000 is in addition to what's on the survey proposed
Right.
at 10,000?
If what we had suggested was included on top of what they had
You're
come in with.
saying that there should be a somewhat bigger scenic
Correct.
easement.
Yeah,
then.
let me bring
Okay.
up my sketch.
And then why, if it's not in AE 10, why is the elevation being raised to as if it's in AE 10?
I think that's just the nature of the construction.
If you look at the existing contours, though,
Yeah.
the existing contours are at that elevation.
They're around
Oh,
that
I thought you
elevation
said
to
it's
begin
not
with.
in.
The existing
okay.
contours.
I thought,
They're not like raising it significantly
but that's what I.
yeah, not arbitrarily. Yeah.
misunderstood. And then in your paragraph about mitigation, say as mitigation, extend the scenic easement, but then you talk about the re-veg of 5,681 square feet in the same breath as you're talking about mitigation, but it's not mitigation because they're doing 6,548 square foot of temporary clearing, which would be expected.
Right, but they're not
So it's not really
they're not asking to keep
mitigation.
that. They're asking to temporarily do it and then mitigate it by revegetating out of after the fact.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Is there anybody in the public that would like to address this application? Anybody online?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Andy?
So I want to point out, one is the scenic easement. Yes, I think we can extend it up. That'll put it at about 15,000 square feet. That's, I don't know, 40% of the lot, but it's really quality versus quantity in some respects. The quality is the most important areas in the duneland aspects that you see and value the most are the ones that we're really trying to protect. In terms of the sanitary system, I think that temporary clearing will be reduced. We have to excavate enough to get the covers off to pump it out to health department regs, but that's certainly going to be much less temporary clearing. I don't know that we actually factored in what that difference would be, but it's probably 1,000 square feet, give or take, looking at the area that we're talking about. In terms of the materials on site, we'd be happy to accept a condition that says all material excavated shall be retained on site in a sediment-controlled barrier area. And I think the most likely and certainly large enough area is the area of the proposed sanitary system would be an ideal location to stockpile those materials while we're working on site. We can stage them there and work around them as we're dealing with the rest of the site. But there is a large area on site. It's not like we're super constrained in terms of where we can put these things.
Any other questions?
I have none.
Andy, I just want to take a moment and just say that you've been in front of me many times, and I want to take this opportunity to say I've enjoyed every one of them. Thank you.
I wish I could tell you that, Your Honor.
I've learned a lot from you. I've learned that you're really good at naming wetlands.
That's
and
right.
I've learned also that you're like George Washington. Everybody in Montauk can say Andy slept here. Andy Hammer slept here. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your service. It's been a pleasure.
And that goes.
Best of luck.
So are we leaving the record open for anything?
Are we
that we
leaving the
discussed?
record open? That's the question we have. Are we getting a construction protocol? I think we can condition that. Number one, I'm concerned about the construction limiting fence. That's going to be dealt with, I'm sure. And then maybe that we can condition it on soils.
I think that's the only open
quality of
item.
the soils remaining on site for.
Concerned
I
about
think we can do that in a sediment-controlled environment. I think that would be
staging area.
perfectly.
Yeah.
And ultimately, not to leave the record, but ultimately, I guess, condition of approval to a survey with the expanded, any change in clearing and the expanded.
Easement, yes.
Easement.
And I think the planning department generally would do that on the sketch that they would submit for you.
So we're
Thank
not
you.
leaving anything open, Mr.
I
Chair.
don't think we need
I don't
to.
think we
I
need
think
to
we can
either.
condition it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Britton.
You ready for a motion? Yes. Okay. In the matter of Charlie OFP LLC, 59 Sandcastle Lane, Amagansett, tax map 300-152-02-28.10. I make a motion to close the hearing and the public record.
Second. Concur.
Concur. Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. New.
Okay, we're going to go into work session. We have an administrative application. That's Linda Schoenheimer at 12 South Ethna Place in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-49-5-11. That's to construct a 288 square foot shed on a parcel containing freshwater wetlands.
Sure. So this is a small shed located 105 feet from wetlands up here to the north. There's also wetlands, surrounding the property. There's wetlands over here to the southwest. Small amount of clearing is required. That's privet. So we're not really too concerned with the clearing that's required. They're doing a little bit of revegetation along the property line as well. Meets all the required setbacks. It's a very minimal project. We don't really have any concern.
I don't have a problem with it. I'm good with this.
Me too.
I'm good.
We have a motion.
Motion here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So for the application for Linda Schoenheimer, 12 South Etna Place, Montauk, FF 300-49-5-11, make a motion to approve the application to be processed administratively.
Second.
I concur.
Concur.
Concur. Thank you. Next, we have post-hearing decisions. We have Montauk 007-668 LLC at 33 North Surfside Avenue in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-29-1-19.2. Size and location is 19,105 square feet at 33 North Surfside Avenue, Surfside Estates, map part of lots 8, 9, 11, 12, and 13, block 356, map number 1690 in Montauk. Description is to legalize an existing home entrance, walkway, and driveway, install a new egress basement window, and allow for replacement of a new storage shed on a lot containing freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 and variances from 255-430 wetland setbacks of the East Hampton Town Code. A 38.5-foot variance is required for the proposed egress window, and a 42-foot variance is required for the new shed location to be located 61.5 feet and 58 feet respectively from wetlands where 100-foot setbacks are required, and any other relief necessary. This zoning district is B residence, zone X flood zone in the secret class is 2.
Okay.
This was mine.
Okay.
So this hearing was, no, I didn't write down in the hearing.
Oh,
I think that's 1028.
1028?
Yeah.
Okay, hearing was on 1028. The agent was Tara Burke, who submitted a memo from May 30th, 2025, and Rick Whalen was also in attendance as the attorney. We received that memo on August 18, 2025. And this has the variances for this were minor. What happened here, there was a previous applications which had a scenic easement established. Something that happened after all of that was that a shed was put. There was a scenic easement that was established, and the shed was put within 10 feet of the scenic easement. So part of this application was to remove that shed and put a smaller shed on another portion of the property, and also an egress window. Both of them were being proposed to go on the northeastern side, and mostly eastern side of the property, both of which put that farther away from the wetlands that were on the property, which were on the north and the south side. Actually, 2 sides of wetlands along this property. There was over time, also from previous application, there had been some stonework that was done. One, aside from the shed, it was on a stone surface and some other pavers. And there was a question about the parking area, which looked like it had been expanded a little bit beyond what was approved. So all of these things are being worked on. Some were already in progress with revegetations, but in terms of the shed and the egress location, I'm going to approve this application. I think it meets the NRSP standards. The shed certainly being made a lot smaller than the shed that was being removed from the property and from near the easement. And the egress window was for access, obviously, from the basement of the house. And that was also put in a better location, by farther from the wetlands. So, and I think it meets the standards. They're going to revegetate on some existing stone that they're going to continue removing. There was one question that came up about a brick apron at the end of the flag lot, which is partially on the applicant's property and mostly not. Whether we want to give that an NRSP or that portion of the brick apron or not. The Rick Whalen in his discussion did say that the apron, rather than they would remove it if we wanted them to, but he felt it probably protects some of the runoff from the gravel driveway to begin with. So I'm all in favor of, giving the NRSP for that portion of the patio. I think it meets the standards. I think there's no impact negatively overall in the location of either or any of the improvements that are being required. And I think the minimum variances are being met on this and improve this project as a whole.
Thank you.
Dimensional and NRSP standards.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, there's not a lot to add. I think you're right about it. The egress window has a function there, and I think it was put in the best possible location. I think it's something that was reasonable for the applicant to ask for. I think we're moving a shed that's replacing a larger shed with a smaller shed up against the house, so it's in a previously disturbed area. We're going to revegetate where that shed was. I think that's a positive. I think the discussion of the apron is one that was about a third of it on the property of this parcel in question. I think taking it out is there's really no significance, but positive environmental significance in taking it out. At this point, what's beyond it would have remained anyway. It was off the property. I think leaving it there is not in any way a problem for me. I think that it does rise to the level of approving the NRSP. I think that the variances are ones that are reasonable giving what we were asked to approve. There's not a lot to add. I think that I thought the presentation was a good one, and I think they tried to cover the bases. So I'm going to approve this application in its entirety.
Jane?
Yes, I don't have a lot to add either. I'm approving the window egress variance. I think a window egress is appropriate and required for a finished basement. It's balanced distance from both wetlands and likely the minimum variance necessary. And in no way do I see it as that an egress could be accomplished without a variance, and I don't see it creating any detriment to the neighbors or environmental conditions. I'm approving the shed for similar reasons, likely the best position possible. It's smaller than what was there, and it's out of the scenic easement. Obviously, there in the record, there was a BP memo sketch from the building department that also talks about us having to legalize everything that was in pink, which were all the walkways and everything. I guess we're legalizing that under the NRSP since they don't require variances. And I also agree that stuff does not create a detriment to the protected natural resources or anything else. And on the apron, I mean, I don't know how they get the part of it outside of us approved. I guess they have to go to highway department, but I guess I'm fine, saying it's okay to keep the brick apron that's on the property that's in our jurisdiction.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
I have not much to add as well. The project will not cause an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. Benefits cannot be sought by some other method other than a variance. 40% of this property is a scenic easement due to the property being constrained with wetlands. These variances are not substantial, and this will have no impact on the neighborhood or negative impact on the environment. It is in keeping with the town's goals for protecting natural resources, and the natural resources will not be diminished in size, polluted, or degraded, or put in peril. Actually, the total lot coverage and building coverages have been reduced. So I'll be approving this application in its entirety.
Thank you. I agree. I don't have anything else to add.
And one thing that I forgot to mention, it came up that the lot size was off on the survey, and
That's right.
they will be submitting a new survey that has the correct dimensions on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Council, we good?
Yep.
Next, we have 840 Springs Fireplace Road, 840 Springs Fireplace Road, Springs, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-62-7-2.3. The size and location is 13,192 square feet. At 840 Springs Fireplace Road, map of Montauk Manor 4, lot 1 through 4, including 17 and 18, block 3, filed July 11th, 1911, as map 455 in Springs. The description is to construct a 1,439 square foot two-story house, 561 square foot pool, 806 square foot decks, outdoor shower, IA sanitary system, reconfigure a driveway, and allow clearing to remain within the jurisdiction of a wetland. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-420 of the town code. The zoning district is A5 residence, AE flood zone, elevation 6 in the secret class is type 2. And Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. This public hearing was held on October 28th. Public hearing and record was closed. Britton Bistrian appeared on behalf of the application. David Rhodes, the engineer, also appeared. Morgan Slater spoke on behalf of the planning department, and there were no callers. This property is within the Springs Historic District. The proposed work is depicted on the Gary Benz survey dated revised February 4th, 2025. Architectural plans are drawn by Cortina and Call dated received 2/13/25, and sanitary system plans by TF Engineering dated revised 12/3/24, and a revegetation plan by James Grimes dated revised 2/23/22. David Rhodes submitted a letter dated October 8th, 2025, which addressed a concern that was noted at the public hearing regarding groundwater, and it noted the bottom elevation of the drain field as proposed conforms to both county code of 2-foot separation to highest expected groundwater and the town code of 4-foot separation to the groundwater table. The highest expected groundwater elevation for this property was determined to be elevation 3.0 feet. Morgan Slater spoke at the public hearing, submitted a sketch which actually revised a scenic conservation easement. The easement accommodates it, which accommodated the 10-foot setback that structures are required to meet from the scenic conservation easements. As a board, we can discuss how we feel about going forward with that. The applicant is proposing a very modest house. The 4/10 rule does apply on this lot since it is undersized for the zoning district it is in. The lot is cleared and vacant. This is in an harbor protection overlay district and contiguous to the wetlands associated with Accabonoc Harbor. A major plus to the environmental stability of this site is the installation of an IA system and also a revegetation plan proposes reducing the clearing from 11,216 square feet to 10,000 square feet, which would meet the clearing limits for HPOD. Now, these to me are two aspects of the application that I have to applaud, that the applicant applaud the applicant for implementing these, because HPOD regulations provide extra protection to sensitive harbor side environments. It protects water quality, which also preserves protecting wetlands, tidal marshes, and coastal habitats. Additionally, there is a 25-foot scenic easement on the eastern side. Proposed, however, in the TAM, the planning department recommended the buffer extend 50 feet further to the west for a buffer and conservation easement extending to a total of 75 feet from the eastern property line. I think the record should also note that since this is in a historical district, that prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant should obtain approval from the Architectural Review Board. I feel with the mitigation that's being proposed, the development is in keeping with NRSP standards and 255-551 and 255-540. I think this project is in keeping with the town's goals for protecting natural resources, and I'll be approving this application in its entirety.
Thank you. Ed? Yeah, thank you for that presentation, Vice Chair. I think they start by looking at this as an odd size, we know it's undersized, but an odd shaped lot. And there was a real effort made here on the part of designing a structure and the importance is to fit within the property successfully. I think it's important to note there are no variances requested here, just an NRSP. I think when you start out looking at how to develop a lot like this, this is a challenge. This is a strange pie-shaped lot. They managed to propose a moderately sized home, 1,492 square feet. It does have a pool, it does have some deckage, but we see that it fit in very well. I think that the various requests, they were half of what's allowed in GFA, and the building coverage is 7%, where 20% would be allowed. These were all efforts on the part of the planning that showed that there was something into this. This parcel was also, before it came to us, in front of the planning board. It had a secret review. The town board had a comment on it. This called for some adjustment on the urban renewal aspect of the property as it came up to Springs Fireplace Road. The discussion of the septic systems, and that was mentioned by the vice chair, that it meet both the county and the town standards. Again, overall, it seems to me, if you have a lot like this that you want to develop, it was an undeveloped lot, you come forward with us with a plan that makes the most sense on that lot for us. No variances is a big one. How you get a project you'd like to see in here on this property. I think that it represents a creative and an active effort on the part of the applicant to find the best way to fit in here. I think the discussion that went on a little bit at the end was whether or not we wanted to talk about increasing the buffer. The applicant was hoping to not go beyond what they had proposed, and it was proposed again by Morgan Slater that we could come a good deal further north here on the property with that. I would say, given the size of the property, the constraints on the property in the other directions, the fact that it comes under the 4/10 rule, and that they've made, I think, a positive and reasonable effort in all directions, I'd be willing to approve it, the proposal as was made by the applicant. I think that planning department is correct in asking for more. I think that's their job. But I think that overall here, what I see on the part of this applicant was a real effort. And I don't know if I want to say applaud, but I certainly recognize it. And I'm willing to, at this point, approve this application.
Thank you. Jane?
Thank you. Vice Chair, did you say that you were approving it with what was proposed or with the added easement that was talked about by Morgan?
I agree with Member Johan that what the applicant proposed is sufficient to me.
Sufficient to you. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what you're saying.
I just
Okay.
wanted to see how the rest of the board felt before I said how I felt. But I think the applicant, as Member Johan has said, has met the standards.
All right, just wanted to hear what you had to say. Okay, so, and maybe while we're talking, maybe you could put up the sketch that was shown to us, be helpful. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I won't repeat everything. I also agree that, you know, this is an NRSP and it's a constrained lot, and all the proposed structures and everything do not need variances. I believe what has been proposed for the most part does meet the all the natural resources special permit conditions, or sorry, standards, in terms of everything from, you know, character to not putting protected resources in. Well, actually, let me take that one out for a second. But I do, so the house, the pool, and the decking seem like an appropriate level of development on the lot. However, you know, the planner was very, very compelled to make the case that the size of the scenic easement as proposed that we saw in the survey, and that two members have already discussed, felt that because it's HPOD and in an NRSP, and this is also the narrowest part of the lot that's closest to the wetlands, that just looking at it as 25 foot deep was not necessarily enough. So it's not as much of a slam dunk without the extra variance for me, that it doesn't potentially put the protected natural resource into, you know, some challenge. Now, I did hear Ms. Bistrian say that she felt that the additional, the 75 feet would be, I think she used the word overreach, but I did hear her say that they would be willing to revegetate that extra, I think it was 1,100 square feet, but would prefer to do that, but not have the easement extended over that. So, I mean, I still want to hear what my other board members say, but I would say at a minimum, since that's offered, I do believe, even if it's not under an easement, that greater degree of vegetation closest to the wetlands could be viewed as more appropriate mitigation. So that's where I am, but I just, still was a little cuspy on that extra bit of easement.
Thank you. Terry?
Yeah, okay, I agree. I agree with, actually, I agree about the additional revegetation. The scenic easement, as it's shown here with the extra 25 feet, I know Britain made an argument that, they had the planning board and the scenic easements approved at what they were at 25% on each side, and that it would be a hardship to have to go back and get that changed to the additional. So I'm definitely against the additional 25 feet of the scenic easement. But as Member Meering said, Britain did say that she was willing to do an additional 1,100 feet of revegetation and keep this 25-foot scenic easement. Mm-hmm. She was willing to do that, which would reduce the clearing an additional 1,100 square feet. And I think we should go for that. I'm in favor of the additional revegetation.
Okay, thank you. I agree with the approval of this application regarding the revegetation and the easement. I find that the application is already meeting HPOD, which I think is laudable on this application. I know that Morgan came to us, and it was kind of last minute too. It was kind of funny to me. So it was last minute she came up with this thing, but I don't think she identified the nexus for requiring more than what HPOD, what they were meeting already. So I too am going to approve the application as submitted.
As originally submitted? Okay, I'm fine with that.
The one thing I would say, I'm fine with it too, but the one thing I would say is that I don't think it was last minute because the TAM actually, recommended an even bigger easement than what's in her sketch. So it was already on the table and she reduced
I read
it.
that a little bit. I know they pulled it back because the original one would have created a nonconformity.
I know, but just wanted to.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, we good, council?
Yep.
Okay. So before you read the next hearing decision in, so this is going to be Ocean Lane. So at the time of the public hearing, I found no reason to recuse from the application. I affirmed that I had no conflict. Advice of counsel has long told me that proximity on this or on being on the same block is not necessarily a requirement for recusal. However, in light of developments that took place during the public hearing, I find that now I need to step aside from the deliberation of this board, and I will be exiting the dais.
Don, come on up. Does that mean you're leading off on it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The public hearing was held on October 28th, 2025. Member Mehring delivered the report and has since recused herself from the hearing for this application. The applicant, 20 Ocean LLC, was represented by its owner, Tommy Zung. Tyler Borsak appeared on behalf of the Town Planning Department, and the record contains a letter in support of the application from neighbor Tanaz Eshegian at 26 Ocean Lane. There was no public comment. The application is for 2 variances
NRSP as the property is on dune land and within wetland jurisdiction, and a variance for a roof height as the roof is changing from gabled to flat, and the maximum height for flat roof is 25, and the new proposed roof is 29.25, which is measured from the lowest grade of an undulating dune land, which is requires a variance of 4.25 feet, which equates to a 17% variance. There was a question as to where sand will temporarily be stored during construction. The owner had suggested in the rear of the property, and member Johan had asked if the front would be possible. I don't think this question got resolved. In the front would be, it turns out that the owner has gone ahead and installed the IA septic system. So the proposed location at the front of the property would be on top of the new IA system. I don't know if that's advisable or if the board has an opinion about this, whether it would cause less disturbance to the site if the sand were stored in the front of the property versus the rear, but it would be on top of an IA system. So I don't know if that was excluded from being possible because of the IA system.
I think at the time, the applicant was not in favor of putting it on it was a completed system, so he did not offer it up at that conversation.
I re-watched the hearing today, and he seemed okay with it. He was, I think he deferred to our.
Going to the front?
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure we came to a conclusion on that either.
And I don't know if I'm qualified, well, I'm probably qualified, but I don't think I would want to stretch out and say that he has to put it on top of the septic system. I don't want to be in that position as a zoning board. These things are plastic covers today and stuff like that, and I don't think it should be us to dictate that. I think we should stay away from it.
All right, so what was proposed that the sand be relocated in the rear of the property, we'll leave that as is. So as for the NRSP that's requested, provided that one is stated by the owner of the foundation of the house is to remain the same, that there will be no disruption on 3 sides of the house, and that there will be invasive species remediation. 2, that concrete cantilevered retaining walls are to replace the existing in-place railroad tie retaining walls. The tie backs with dead men's legs are to be cut and abandoned in place. In addition to revegetating, the construction disturbed areas as proposed in the construction protocol. Additionally, that all currently cleared areas also be revegetated. That the dunes will retain their current topography, and that the construction protocol would be adhered to. Also, I don't believe that other aspects of the project negatively impact the NRSP, namely the first and second floor additions, which, although they do increase the GFA, don't meaningfully increase the building coverage. New doors and windows, replacing these existing wood decking, and reconfiguring the existing driveway and entry steps. So having said that, and with the NRSP conditions as mentioned above, I believe the project will meet NRSP standards as enumerated in 255-5-51 of East Hampton Town Code. As for the roof height, variance requested of 4.25 feet, resulting from the roof changing from a gable to flat roof. The change reduces the current roof height nonconformity and appears to eliminate a very small existing pyramid violation, and will overall have, I believe, a minimal visual impact. So as for the height variance, as per the standards enumerated in 255-8-50, I don't believe that granting the variance will cause an undesirable change of character in the neighborhood, or that it will create a detriment to nearby properties. And as for whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance, the change from a gable to a flat roof opens up floor space with little addition to the home's outline. and reduces the overall current roof height by 4 feet. So retaining a gable roof would result in a similar visual impact, in my opinion. I do not believe the variance request is substantial, and I don't believe that granting the variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or in the affected area of the town. And though the difficulty causing the applicant to request an area variance is self-created, this consideration is not determinant. So therefore, with the project mitigations as I stated previously, I vote to approve this application.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay. Generally, okay, I agree with my fellow board member. There are a number of things. Well, I'll talk about the height one. The height one was actually easier for me to decide on. And as already stated, even though it's going to be a 4.25 increase in the height for the flat roof, it's going to be an ultimate lowering of about 4 feet from the gable roof that exists today. And the additions, I think, will not be overwhelming. He's still well under coverage calculations for the property. Getting closer, but still meets that. So I'm definitely approving the variance for the flat roof. And then the discussion of the retaining wall, the one that was in most disrepair on the, I guess that's the southwesterly side of it. They had the two options about doing the dead man approach and the concrete retaining wall approach. And I think everyone agreed in the TAM and board also that the best method was to go with the concrete retaining walls. So that is the one that I'm approving. The other, the existing decking, when it was out at the property, you could see a lot of it was in disrepair. So I have no problem with all the existing decks being rebuilt. And I guess I do want to, I'm concerned with the NRSP, I guess, with the soils. I know we talked about it, and he wants to put them in the back. I guess one of our concerns, which we're always concerned about contours, is if they're putting all of that back in this area. My concern, I guess, is he going to restore all the contours to the way they exist today? And I think, was that in the construction protocol? I'm not sure it was. And then I do think, as the TAM recommends, that he would revegetate anything that was disturbed during the course of the project. He has on here like rebuild existing fences. I don't know if those fences were approved. And showed a lot of, I don't know what kind of revegetation on them, but I don't know if that would have to go to the ARB for the fencing. So they were 8-foot deer fences. But I guess we could, I don't know that we want to approve, the fence.
Or we can approve a fence to code.
Yeah,
I mean,
it still needs to,
That's the code.
approve like
They
the
would have to get
location.
ARB approval if
I
it's
agree
8
with that.
feet.
We can't approve, we don't want to.
You can't approve an 8-foot one without ARB
But we
approval.
say a fence to
So
code,
we
we
have to
should,
go to the
We don't know if it
I
has
don't know what
ARB
it-
approval, right?
Well,
Does it? I don't know.
I'm not sure it's a property code on it.
I don't think it says.
No,
But it would, 8 foot would need ARB approval.
at least it may be something, yeah. So I am very concerned about the contours and that all the revegetation gets done properly. But overall, if it gets done properly, I think it will be better for Metro, for the RSP. The only other question I had, that little cutoff in the parking area that he's squaring off, I mean, it didn't really seem like that was necessary.
still part of the proposal.
Yeah. Overall, I am approving this project, but there's a concern that the protocols and the contours be met and the revegetation occur.
Thank you. Ed?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you start with the walls, the retaining walls, because we've talked about the environmental impact of those. It very quickly became obvious that the concrete proposal option was the better one, far less disturbance. He talked about an additional 800 yards of excavation would be needed to come down at least on the south side of the property. I wouldn't be surprised if it would wind up being more in the end. I think that was a positive. I think that it's extensive and it does extend around towards the rear of the house. So it's something that deserved our attention. And I think that we had the conversation that night. And I think coming to the idea that it's going to be the minimum amount under the circumstance with the concrete was important in this application. I think the height is, but it's been stated well by the other board members here, is that, it actually is coming down, although we have to reconsider that it's a flat roof. But I think it's important to remember that it only is being called out because of that depressed area at the east side of the house that's significantly lower. So relative to almost the entirety of the property, except for that one pit area, it wouldn't be called out for the variance on this at all. So I don't have a problem with that. I think the additional work being done to the house is largely being done over previous disturbed variances and over the house itself. So it's a large jump in GFA, but it's not a jump in footprint, house footprint at all, or very little anyway, and not something that we have to think an awful lot about for me on this one. The conversation about what has been disturbed, the condition of the dune land around there, and what it will look like, the applicant was very anxious to tell us that he was going to see to it that anything that we looked like was disturbed is because they pulled out invasive species. He mentioned that there was a significant amount of olive in there and that had gone, and he was happy to see that done, and it would all be revegetated. So the revegetation plan here, along with the respect for the existing contours, is absolutely critical in terms of maintaining the best we can on a small parcel that's going to have a significant amount of work done to it. So I think those are two areas that we have to reiterate how important it was for us in considering this. Let me see what else I had here. The GFA, the building protocol is critical here, and where we do with the sand, I agree with the conversation that's happened. We didn't like it in the back because that's an existing area that we won't want to see us losing, doing great disturbance to or losing the code. I now agree with, having suggested it, I'm agreeing with the chair. It'd be one thing over traditional septic system where we might have reinforced covers, and we've driven on them and over and done that. As far as these leaching pools, I don't know that I'd want to be responsible for recommending anyone to put any kind of tonnage on that and find out we had done serious damage to it. I think the comment that we're not qualified probably applies. Someone else could have to make that comment to make it authoritative. But overall, I think that there was a reasonable presentation. It seemed like the concern for the environment was on the applicant's mind. He represented himself so he could speak directly to how concerned he was about the future of the property. The revegetation is critical, and I think that the comments that have been made about the fence to code in the future, that would be important. And then, of course, just that the planting plan being approved and then hopefully at the end inspected the CFO so we see that the parcel is preserved. With all of that in, though, I'm going to approve this application. I think that it was a reasonable effort made on the part of the applicant to address our major concerns, and so I have no problem with it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The only concern I really had on this is how the retaining wall was going to be installed. The dune land on this property is significant. The importance of this retaining wall is the fact that it supports and upholds the dune land characteristics. So not disrupting the existing topography is critical. The existing retaining wall actually holds up to approximately 10 feet of dune land topography and soils. So maintaining that dune land feature is paramount to protecting what characterizes this neighborhood. The method of replacing the retaining wall by installing a new poured concrete wall appears to me to minimize the disturbance within the duneland habitat. This would avoid extensive excavation and reduce impacts to dune stability, native vegetation, and natural grade, while not really increasing the footprint. In my opinion, this approach may be considered a lower impact alternative. There should be no disturbance other than what is absolutely necessary. What's important that the restoration of vegetation after construction and, most important, erosion control measures should be implemented during construction, which will reduce impacts to dune vegetation and root systems. In terms of clearing, all the unimproved areas of the parcel should be revegetated with duneland species after construction. This will help to maintain the character of the neighborhood. The additions to the residence are within existing disturbed areas, and the gabled to flat roof is to add additional GFA. Overall, the residence will increase to a proposed 2792 square feet, where 28 is allowed. So they are within what is allowed. The proposed flat roof does meet pyramid regulations and will meet FEMA requirements. I think the existing deck changes are minimal, and the septic system is in the best location and will create greater environmental protection for the property. The driveway is simply being squared off at the southeastern corner of the parking area. In summary, the applicant appears to have really considered alternatives and seem to be very aware and conscious of the environmental constraints of the property during the public hearing, and has, in my view, proposed reasonable methods of construction. I agree with the planning department recommending the revegetation of all areas outside of the existing and proposed improvements. A scenic easement over the duneland topography is warranted, and placing an easement over areas around the northeast corner and southern property lines is warranted as well. Overall, I will be approving this application in its entirety and approving the retaining wall by installing the new poured concrete wall with environmental safeguards.
Thank you. I agree with my board members. I agree with the concrete retaining wall. I agree with the height of the building. I agree with the application as a whole. I do have a suggestion, though, regarding the final grade and the topography of the dunes. Council, in paragraph D of the conditions, has to do with the revegetation plan. If we can say something to the fact that the revegetation plan shall be revised and submitted, and showing that the final grades comply with the existing grades.
Okay, so it'd be a re-veg plan and
Yeah, it should be shown on the re-veg.
like a grading and re-veg plan.
Yeah, grading and re-veg plan shall show that the final grade contours shall comply with the existing. Okay. Does that sound right?
That's a good recommendation.
So something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Big time, Lorraine.
Okay.
All right. Other
Okay,
than that, we're good.
go back to the scenic easement and thank the vice chair for bringing that up, because it was brought up, but and I do agree that we should get a scenic easement on that as well. I know it stated that it would be small, but so what?
Right. I mean, the more, I think the more protection, the better.
It's
recommended in there?
in paragraph E. Scenic and conservation museum shall be established.
Oh, it's actually already in the summary.
75
Oh, good.
feet from the
Yes.
eastern property. So it's in there, the conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
and I think it's warranted.
yeah.
Okay, you're good?
Yeah, so
Good job.
you said there's the scenic easement is where?
It's part of E, paragraph E,
In the
conditions.
in the recommended. project.
It's already
Summary of
identified.
Conditions, right.
Oh. I don't have E.
This is a TAM.
In the TAM?
In the TAM, yes.
In the TAM.
In the summary of mitigation.
recommended
at the
conditions.
end, It's one of the recommended mitigation measures.
Is there a revised one? Hold on, hold on. Shoot,
I don't have that in my TAM.
hold on, let me go back there. Yeah, I was, 20.
I didn't bring my,
I'm sorry, let me go back there. I might have made it.
you got the TAM, Perry?
I do too. Maybe I do.
I don't have my TAM.
Still think the re-veg plan should say that?
Soils, yeah.
But I gotta look up,
Yeah,
I gotta
yes,
look
on
up
the
the,
re-veg plan.
here we go.
Yeah, I don't see it.
No,
Scenic
the easement,
Yeah.
no.
But
It's
I
not
would like
mentioning
to-
the scenic
I
easement.
would like to get that.
It's probably in the body of the TAM.
It is, yeah, it's on page 4,
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
second
It's
to
on page
last
4,
paragraph.
Charlie, in the TAM.
In the TAM.
Scenic easement over some of the duneland topography may be warranted.
Okay. Yeah, so where would it be though? Where would the scenic easement be?
On the south side.
Over, placing an easement over areas around the northeast corner and southern property lines,
Yeah.
and over the duneland topography.
Do they, does the
It'll be
board want a
south
sketch
and
for the
northeast.
approval?
South,
to
yes.
Approve a sketch at the same time?
Again, we wouldn't be as scenic, we can't, scenic easement, we can't create a nonconformity, right? Does it have to be within 10 feet of?
I would probably, I mean,
Easier that way, yeah.
that'd be easier. I mean, I guess you could, yeah, I mean,
You always write it to
So-
say,
I don't know how you're gonna define that.
Can he,
it would be like 10 feet off of the, it'd be like that. This is gonna be tight, but that's not really that's not, it's up here.
Yeah,
up there and
northeast
down
and the
there.
south, that northeast
Yep.
section.
10 feet from here. It's not
It's
gonna.
gonna be very little, guys, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe a little bit helps.
But you have a re-veg plan to keep the re-veg plan would have a contours, so the contours would still be there. And then
that's
you
for contours on a final CO survey too.
yeah.
Just wanna make sure there's
So
a
we'd have to
tie.
All right, well, we'll work on it, but
Okay.
I know the general gist of it, and yeah.
Okay. We good?
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out.
It's like, it's so 75. It's a good- isn't it?
Yeah.
I must have not tapped it properly.
It does weird things. And I use it. I'm like, weirder.
Okay, next we have Jordan Brink and Inez Salahi at 49 Gull Road in Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-10-6-5. Size of the location is 7,500 square feet at 49 Gull Road, Culloden Shores. Lot 60, map number 3433, filed October 16, 1961 in Montauk. The description is to allow a patio to remain 8.8 feet and 9.3 feet from side and rear lot lines where 15 feet is required. Relief sought is two variances of 6.2 feet and 5.7 feet pursuant to 255-1110 of the East Hampton Town Code is required to allow the existing patio to remain 8.8 feet and 9.3 feet from the side and rear yard lot lines where 15 feet is required and any other relief necessary. The zoning district is B residence and the X flood zone and the secret class is type 2. This was this. Okay, go for it.
So we started with a hearing on 10/21, and it was, the notice was improper, but we went ahead with the presentation by the applicant's agent, who was Davis Landscape Design Company. And then there was a continuation that we established to get proper posting on this, with a continuation scheduled for November 18th, which we had. Back then, there was still an issue with posting, but there were a couple of neighbors that did say that they approved of the applicant's variances and the project. So we went ahead with that and ended the call. There were no other calls at the time on November 18th from the public. So this is 2 variances. So it was a very long time coming for 2 small variances, but I am going to approve both variances. They list on the TAM as 6.2 and 5.7 feet respectively for the patio for the side and the rear lot lines, where 15 is required. There was discussion, though, that originally on the building plans that were approved, the plans that were submitted showed 10 foot as on the documentation for the patio. And then the 15 foot came into play later on. And so the variances went on inspection later on, said that they required a 15 foot. However, if you look at the survey also, it's a very small portion of the patio that is actually attached to the house itself. And effectively, this is, to me, more like a 1.2 and a 0.7 foot variance. So I am going to approve both of these in their entirety. There is no NRSP required on this one. So I think it meets all the variances, the dimensional variances. It's not going to pose a detriment to the town. They're the minimum variances necessary. They're not really even self-created, but and they're proving it in its entirety after 4 months.
Thank you. Ed?
It's fairly simple, but there was this idea that they assumed it was 10 feet. It was pointed out by the chair at the night of the meeting that it's the responsibility of the contractor to move forward knowing what the regulations are. Be that as it may, it's a very small portion of the patio touches the house, so if it hadn't touched, it would have been only a 10 foot. Having said all of that, they still missed it by a foot, 0.2, and professional organizations come in and then said, well, it's hard to see the property line. That's what surveying is about, and we have to deal with it all the time. So I'm going to approve it, but I just want to make note of the fact that it's kind of a weak argument to come in front of us and say, well, it was hard to know where the property line was. This is what we deal with every
I
day.
think it's a weaker argument because you could have measured it off the house which is existing and you know that this is, you didn't need the property line. You had the house to give you the benchmark.
All of that being is, they're very small variances. I'm going to approve it, but sorry to comment about. Yeah, I'm going to approve it, Mr. Chairman.
Jane?
Speaking of the weak argument, no. So the hearing notice, as we know, was written in relation to relief for a recently installed stone porcelain patio. The hearing notice was written in relation to what was believed to be what by code is needed 15 feet required setback for any decking that's attached to the primary residence. And the variances brought before us in that notice, 6.2 and 5.7 feet, would be substantial. However, during the public hearing, we learned that likely the building permit was issued in error based on a survey that showed that the patio was 10 feet from the side and rear yard property line. And that was mistakenly approved. I guess they didn't realize that the patio was attached to the house. And it is true, one thing that's kind of unique about this application is like, it's a small corner of this new patio that's attached to a small corner of the house. So from there, the applicant explained that that mistake got compounded because the subcontractor built it in error, as was said, 1.2 feet and 0.7 feet too close to the lot lines. So one error compounds the other. As a board, so it's sort of like approving builder's error. As a board member, it's not unusual for us to grant relief in the case of builder's error, even if, as the chair says, it might be a weak argument. And if it is based on a required 10-foot setback, those variances are a lot less substantial. Again, the unique factor for me here is how little of the patio is actually attached to how little of the house. Usually I think we think about these attached deckings as patio as a kind of entirely attached to like a full side of a house. So all in, not really substantial. There was a building department error, a builder's error, and I don't think from the standards perspective it will create much detriment to the neighbors or any issues with respect to character or anything else in the variance standards, so I'm going to approve them.
Who's going? My turn?
Chair.
Okay. I do not think that this project will create an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. This residence is actually surrounded by similarly sized properties. The project will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, the record does show that aerial photos and site drawings indicate very dense vegetative screening along the rear and side property lines, which should be maintained to help reduce visual or privacy impacts on neighbors. This area is not visible to any of the neighbors. I will be approving this application in its entirety because I do feel it meets the variance standards outlined in 255-1110 of the town code to allow this patio to remain where it is.
Thank you. I agree too. I have nothing else to add. Next, we have Maria Christina Peretti at 501 Montauk Highway, East Hampton, Suffolk, tax map number 300-166-4-23. Size and location is 13,294 square feet at 501 Montauk Highway, East Hampton. Description is to allow a portion of existing 334 square foot screen porch and a 146.45 square foot addition to the main house and 200 square foot addition to the cottage to remain within side and rear yard lot line setbacks and outside the town's pyramid regulations. So we saw as a 7 variances are required for this application. Variances of 6.08 feet, 1.24 feet, and 2.4 feet are required from 255-1110. For the East Hampton Town Code to allow the addition to remain 6.4 feet, screen porch to remain 13 feet, and wood deck to remain 12.4 feet from the western side yard lot line where setbacks of 12.48 feet, 14.24 feet, and 14.4 feet are required, respectively. Once variance of 10 foot is required from 255-1110 of the Town Code to allow the addition to the residence to remain 19 feet, 20 inches, 19.2 feet from the southern front yard lot line where a 20-foot setback is required. One variance of 11.7 inches is required from 255-1110 of the Town Code to allow the addition to the cottage to remain 3.3 feet 5 inches from the northern rear yard lot line where a 15-foot setback is required. Variances of 7.2 feet and 5 foot 1 inch are required from 255-1172D of the Town Code to allow the addition to the residence to remain 7.2 inches and the addition to the cottage to remain 5 foot 1 inch outside of the town's pyramid regulations from the western and northern property lines respectively, and any other relief necessary. Zoning district is A residence, zone X flood zone, and secret class is type 2. Member Mearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so the public hearing for this application was held on November 18th, 2025. I think we're working off of this latest survey dated 3/24/2025. The town was from AKRF. Ms. Karen Hogue of Toomey Latham represented the applicant. The property owner, Ms. Peretti, spoke briefly on her own behalf. Architect Jonathan, and I didn't write down his last name, sorry, also provided some comments at the hearing. And he also provided into the record a architectural submission that shows the as-built structures and really highlights how much of each has an incursion and requires relief that I found helpful, and I'll be referring to in my comments. One neighbor also spoke very briefly, and she said she had no objections to the granting of the variances. The lot is non-conforming, both in lot area size and also non-conforming in width. It is a very irregularly shaped lot, and this is a 13,294 square foot lot in an 8 residence zone. In particular, it's the front is the narrowest part of the lot, but both the front and the back are undersized to required widths. All structures, the house and the cottage, well, the structures, the house and the cottage were erected prior to zoning and are pre-existing non-conforming to setbacks. As we discussed, the last CO issued on this property was in May 1996. Ms. Peretti, who purchased the house in October of 2023, did not seek an updated CO, and though that would be advisable for a buyer to do that, perhaps at the time, doing so was not required by code prior to closing or at the time of closing. Per the applicant, aerials, and I think confirmed by the planning department, aerials indicate that the non-conforming additions that are the subject of this application and require relief were likely built sometime between 2013 and 2016 under a prior owner, and somehow they were built without building permits, and somehow, though apparently the building department looked at this property several times, once for an emergency septic replacement, as well as the approval of a rental registry permit in recent years. They didn't seem to catch the irregularities and the structures that were built without a permit. The building inspector did find the irregularities in 2024, we heard. Okay, so 3 elements were added or expanded that need variance relief from this board in this application to legalize. So I'm going to go through the 3 ones. Let me start first with the house. So there was an addition to the primary residence, which is small in nature, and I don't think I don't know that we got the exact size of the addition that was done. It needs both a front yard setback and a side yard setback. I'm going to, well, I guess, yeah, I'll just do my approvals for each one here. So the front yard setback is de minimis. I think it's only a matter of inches. This property fronts on a very busy part of Montauk Highway, and there's a large fence, and it's completely screened and set back from the road. The side yard setback is more significance. However, I think it's a very small part of the small house, and it's only about, I think, not even a half of that small addition that needs relief from the side yard setback. So it doesn't have an issue on character. One of the unique things about this application, the property, is that almost every property around this is vacant. So it will not have an issue of disturbance to neighbors, or granting this variance. These variances will not change character of the area. And I think it would be a hardship to have the applicant slice off a piece of the house that, even though it was built without a permit, I think this should be warrants legalization. With regards to the screened porch or screened room, whatever you want to call it, and the wood deck that is under it, on paper, the variance reads quite large. However, when you look at that architectural rendering, it is a very tiny slice of this room, screened porch and deck that needs setback. So again, I think it would be, I think the benefit to allowing it to stay well offsets any detriment to neighbors or character or anything else. So I'll be approving the variances related to the wood deck and the screened room on top of it. Finally, with respect to the cottage, this small cottage close to the rear of the property was already deeply non-conforming to setbacks. We don't even know exactly when it was built. It's probably been there for a long time. And so there was a 200 square foot addition on the east side of the cottage. As you look at the cottage now, it's very hard to, but in all of these additions, it's very hard to detect that, there was brand new anything really being created. We had the most robust, I think, discussion with the applicant on this, about this is really expanding a nonconformity, which made me take pause. But again, this is a small, low-slung, one-bedroom residence that has its own CO, and the 200, again, only about a third of that 200 square feet is the portion that requires setback. So although it is expanding a nonconformity, I do think there are enough unique issues around this property, around what's happened. And yes, the chairman said, maybe it's buyer beware, but I am willing to approve this variance as well as, again, as I've said before, I think it meets the standards and the benefit to the applicant of not having to slice, 100 feet off of a very small cottage residence outweighs the benefit to keeping it. Sorry, the benefit to keeping it outweighs the detriment. So I'm going to approve all three elements. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay, you done?
I am.
All right. Thanks for the detail. Okay. I agree. I am going to approve this application in its entirety, basically for the same reasons. 6.8 for the addition of the house with the western side lot line. It's de minimis. It's stick with the residence. The 10-foot for the addition to the residence, that variance I also find to be, I'm going to approve that variance. And then on the western side of the residential addition, all of them. I guess in a nutshell, a lot of my decision on this goes back to pre-existing non-conforming, lacks of COs, and times that the building department and the town went in and did do things like the emergency septic and the C of O for rental registry, and no one picked up on it. And I think a major reason for that is the fencing that is all over the property, surrounding all the sides and way off the property line. And I know, if I was a homeowner looking for a home, I don't know that I would look. I see a fence that's going all around the property. I guess I would probably assume that that's where the property goes to. So yeah, maybe she needed better representation. Maybe you'd buyer beware, but I could see how all of this got overlooked by the applicant. And the numbers are not big. The addition in the back of the cottage, I think also the pyramid violation for that, again, was entirely masked because of the fence that was probably 15 feet away from it on the property or off the property. Now, so I'm approving all of the variances on this. The applicant on the survey, it says that the fencing is going to be removed, and that she's going to do something later. She wants to take care of some other items first. She removed the shed already that was on there that said to be removed. And the one thing with the fence, I guess, whenever she gets to the fencing, I also want to make a stipulation that she puts up a fence that, just is a height that just needs a permit or goes to the ARB if it's going to be anything higher. No, very interesting. I'll say it's interesting, but I am approving the entire application.
Thank you. Ed? Yeah, I want to thank Member Meering for describing this as well as she did. I think that each of these variances come with a story. And I think the big story here, we talk about uniqueness. I guess this is the most unique property we've seen with a fence. I don't know if I've seen anything quite like this. I agree with the argument that if you're buying a property, you should probably have legal representation that shows you where the real property line is. But if I'm walking on that property, I'm probably assuming I own a lot more than I do. And I certainly wouldn't be thinking that these things that eventually became variance problems were going to be a problem. It looked like I had plenty of room behind that cottage. So there was their responsibility, and it was probably a legal responsibility of the representation to do a better job of informing them exactly what they were purchasing. But I think Member Meering's explanation of how these variances impact long-term both the community and the character of the neighborhood, I think is a good one. And I think that largely they get reduced to not being terribly significant. The pre-existing condition and the fact that, as was mentioned again previously, that you don't see any new construction here. I actually looked at that cottage and thought perhaps they had added on to the east end of it, and not the west end. I mean, the west end and not the east end. So anyway, there's all of that. I did go back and say to myself, of what kind of justification, at 255-850, if I ask whether the grant of the variance will cause unwanted change of the character of the neighborhood, I say no. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant be achieved by some method feasible to pursue other than the area variances, no. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, I think no. Whether the grant of the variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical and environmental conditions of the neighborhood, what we have there exists now, and I don't see that as a large potential to cause environmental damage. Whether the difficulty causing the applicant's request an area variance was self-created, I don't think in this case it was. I think this was pre-existing, and they may have had to know about it, but they had to deal with what they had once they had it. In the end, I think the thing we ask often, and it was already brought up by Member Meering, whether the hardship to the applicant outweighs the potential for the damage to the environment or the neighborhood in general. I think that the hardship would outweigh whatever potential damage there is here. Removing a portion of the cottage, removing much of else. What can be removed, they've agreed to remove the shed, the hot tub, the slab. Those were extraneous. They were agreed to. Part of them were removed when we visited the site, Mr. promised. And I think the comments about the future of the fence, I hope will be handled by the appropriate application at the time. But we'll see a considerable amount of new fencing here. And I got to say that I don't know if that qualifies legally as being unique, but it is certainly a different look to anything we've seen before. So I'm approving it in its entirety, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Vice Chair.
The surrounding properties are undeveloped and wooded, and the property before us is notably undersized and small. The residence and cottage were constructed before the adoption of the zoning code, and the additions were constructed in 2016 without building permits. That work was not done by the current owner. This owner is simply trying to legalize what is there and CO the property. Additions were built in locations already disrupted by existing development on the property. The hot tub and shed have been removed. I think what makes this unique is it is a pre-existing non-conforming and it predates zoning regulations other than the additions. These improvements have been in existence for quite some time, legalizing the additions will really not cause a detriment or impact on the environmental conditions of the neighborhood. The variances requested are the minimum necessary to reduce the described hardship that was inherited by the current owner. And for all the reasons stated, I will be approving this application in its entirety.
Thank you. I agree. I think the uniqueness of this thing is obvious. The guy mowing the lawn didn't know where the property line was. So, I agree. So I even think that Council Karen Hoag addressed the due diligence as it relates to buyer beware in a very logical way. I had to put myself in my mind, in my shoes, it would not have been as obvious. And it was a good explanation. So with that, I agree with my fellow board members to approve the application.
Mr. Chairman, I was not here for the hearing for the next case, so I'll remove myself and allow.
Thank you.
Do we need to, this EAF one, do we have to say something about that?
We did.
We did?
We
Say it?
we did a
last
neg
time?
deck.
Oh, we did
Yeah.
a neg deck on it already?
We did.
Oh, okay.
Next, we have 66 Montauk Highway LLC at 66 Old Montauk Highway, Amagansett, Suffolk Tax Map Number 300-172-2-27, and the size and location is 46,654 square feet at 66 Old Montauk Highway in Amagansett. The description is to allow the pool house to remain 207 square feet and the shed to remain 7 feet above the pyramid line along the northern lot line. Relief sought is a variance of 255-1110 of the East Hampton Town Code is needed to allow the pool house to remain 207 square feet, where 200 square feet is the maximum, and 255-1172 for a pyramid variance of 7 feet to allow the shed to remain in place. Zoning district is a residence zone, X flood zone, and a secret class site 2. Member Meary.
Thank you. Actually, I didn't see this go on the agenda until, I guess I didn't see it till I walked into the room tonight because it went on late. So I'm not going to do a whole wind up on all the things that are already in the record about the application. So I'm just going to dig in with respect to, if that's okay. The hearing was held just last week. We had thought about making the decision last week, but I think we had a little technical difficulty and ran out of time. So with respect to the pool house requires a 7-foot variance. It's 7 feet over the 200 square foot maximum for a pool house. It was established during the public hearing that this pool house was already built at 207 square feet by a prior owner, and though the owner had been redeveloping part of the property or adding to the property, they didn't touch this pool house, and that it already has a CO on it. So I guess it still says it's a variance requested, so I'll be approving it as 7 square feet is de minimis and will not trigger any of the potential negative characteristics that could come with allowing a variance under the standards. And then with respect to the shed in the back that needs pyramid and lot line variances. They're substantial in terms of on paper, but I guess this shed they changed the roof line, but the shed has been mostly in its place. So it's been non-conforming for quite a long time. It is close to the property line, but it is such a small structure on a large lot and heavily screened versus the lot to the rear of it that I, again, don't see granting these variances to have any impact on the character of the neighborhood, on the environmental conditions, on the neighbors. It's not, it's a shed, so it's not inhabited. It doesn't create activity around it. So I'll be approving those variances as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry?
Okay, I didn't see it either. On the
We're going to
Okay,
wing
I
it.
will only add to that the agent was Joel Halsey.
Thank you.
And I know in relation to the shed being so close and the pyramid, he had a story about a tree that they
I'm writing
wanted
this.
to save, I believe. And they couldn't just move the shed a little bit because they were concerned about the root system of that tree also. So consequently, for that reason, I will approve the shed variance, and on the pool house itself, as already stated, there was a mistake from a previous owner. It was on the C of O. I'm really approving the 207-foot, well, the 7-foot variance for the pool house. Also.
Thank you. Ed?
No, no.
John.
John.
John?
Hi, Chairman Deline.
It's called rote.
The pool house variance of 7 square feet is a 3.5% variance. It's minimal. Pool house was built by the previous owner, and the overage appears to have resulted from a contractor error. Requiring the owner to remediate this minimal error would be onerous, and the benefit to the town minimal. The applicant is proposing to allow a shed that was grandfathered within pyramid setbacks. According to the plan submitted by the applicant, the original shed roof height was 5 feet 7¼ inches, with a new height adding 1 foot 4 1/8 inch, bringing the total new height to 6 feet 11 3/8 inches. And the shed, which is only 2 feet 1 3/16 inch from the property line, is surrounded by vegetative screening. As the shed was then moved further away from the property line, the new roof height nonconformity was reduced by 6 inches. So, albeit that this change was made without the benefit of a building permit and is not to be condoned, I believe it is also minimal. And I vote to approve this application in its entirety.
Thank you. Vice Chair?
I have nothing to add. This is a de minimis request. It will not change the character of the neighborhood. The application as requested will not cause any negative impact, so I believe it is in compliance with the East Hampton Town Code, and I will be approving it in its entirety.
I agree with my board members. I have nothing else to add. You good, counsel? Yep. Next, we have the minutes of, draft minutes of December 2nd.
Make a motion to approve the draft minutes from December 2nd, 2025 for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you. We go on to resolutions. We have John.
Anybody gonna second?
You're on.
Concur.
I got your back, don't worry.
Concur.
We have the resolutions. John and Karen Wesson.
Wow.
As we wait for member Johan. At 24 Washington Drive, Montauk, Suffolk, tax map number 300-71-2-1.2.
Do you?
Whose was that?
That's just mine. Well, it was Ed's, but he was out. So I did look at it. It looked good to me. And this was a unanimous approval. Member Johan was out of town, so alternate member John Thorson participated in the decision, and it was a unanimous approval. So for John and Karen Wesson, 24 Washington Drive, Montauk, tax map 300-71-2-1.2, make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
Second.
Concur.
With the next two, I didn't send out. The next two, I didn't send out yet, so those.
Oh, I didn't see them.
Yeah, I didn't send them.
Reason, okay.
Okay.
I was just going to say.
Okay, I thought so.
it was
And
just
then
me.
with that, we're going, like to see a motion to adjourn and to go to executive session to discuss a legal matter.
So I'll do two. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting on December 9th, 2025 at 9:40 PM.
Second.
Concur.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for the discussion of a legal matter.
Second.
Concur.
Concur.